Okay, folks, would you please, we are going to continue our meeting. If you'll all have a seat, please, and we'll do what we need to do. I'm going to turn this over to, I want to say Commissioner Gelder.
No.
City Administrator Gelder,
Thank you.
and he's going to make a few comments. Thank you.
This evening, the officer involved shooting on Wednesday, May 7th is under an active investigation by the Washington State Office of Independent Investigation. The video that is about to be viewed is not appropriate for all audiences. It is graphic in nature, and if you or your child are attending this meeting, please consider stepping outside of chambers. Or if you're at home viewing the meeting on cable or the internet, please be advised and take necessary precautions. We understand and appreciate the video may raise other questions for viewers. We'll do our best to answer those questions to the extent allowed during the course of the investigation. Thank you.
Okay, Brooks. Folks, can I have your attention, please? There's something very tragic that's happened here. Excuse me. Thank you. Brooks, would you go ahead and run the video, please?
Exit the vehicle with your hands up. Do it now. I'm not going to tell you again. Hey, exit the vehicle right now or you're going to get pepper ball. You're going to get pepper ball. Shooting pepper ball. Pepper ball, pepper ball. Get out. Hey, he's got a knife. Exit with your hands up now. Hey, drop the knife. He's got a knife. He's got a knife. Back up.
Hey, drop the knife. Drop the knife or you're gonna get shot.
Drop the knife. Back up.
Drop the knife or you're gonna get shot.
Pepper ball. Pepper ball.
Drop the knife or you're gonna get shot.
You're gonna get shot. Drop the knife, dude. Please. Hey, brother. We don't want to do this, man. Hey, my name. What's your name? Get cover. Get cover now. What's your name, buddy? Hey, don't.
Stop. Stop. Drop the knife.
Hey, we need you to drop the knife, man. Go, 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 go. No, get him.
Hey, stop.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gelder. I'm frankly sad that I have to show that tape. We had to show it. And now we're going to go move on with our agenda. And I have a statement from the City Council. Doug, would you like to read that statement, please?
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of my fellow council members, I'd like to make this public statement. First and foremost, every loss of life is a tragedy. Our hearts go out to the family and friends of Justin Mogling. We also recognize the emotional toll this event takes on our entire community. This includes the toll on officers who protect our communities with their lives. There will be a full and independent investigation into the circumstances surrounding this incident. We are fully committed to transparency and accountability. The public deserves answers, and it is critical that we allow the investigative process to take its full course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Now, Council, any further statements on this matter from you? Seeing and hearing none, we are going to move on with public comments. If you have comments for the council, you can step to the podium. You have 3 minutes and state your name for the record. Because of the amount of people here, we're going to limit the comment period to 30 minutes. So we will end the public comment period at 6 o'clock.
Level. I am here today to speak out about the injustice of police violence. As many of you all know, Stone Child Chief Stick was murdered by the Poulsbo police right before COVID. This recent murder shows once again that the Poulsbo police are choosing lethal violence instead of de-escalation. There were many different choices that the police had that they could have made. They put down spike strips before sorry, it's difficult to speak because I'm emotional. The Poulsbo police put down spike strips in order to slow down Justin's vehicle. However, they didn't even know that he had a weapon before firing chemical weapons into his vehicle. So you saw where they're showing that they're throwing pepper balls into his vehicle. He was driving between 2 and 10 miles per hour. This is completely unacceptable behavior by the police, and it's completely unacceptable facial expressions from the mayor right now. And I just want to say that this is completely abhorrent and that the police need to stop fighting for expansion. The number of undercover vehicles that we've seen through Poulsbo in recent days is also through the fucking roof, and it is endangering everyday people that are just driving to work. There are so many more collaborations between the police recently in Poulsbo, and policing here means the death of BIPOC people. We need to keep the police away from our schools. The increase in policing in this current political moment means the death of everyday people. So I am incredibly grateful for the families coming here today, but they should not have to fucking come to city council to talk to you about the murder of their family members. So if you do not show them respect, know that you won't get any from any of the people that elected you. We pay your salaries, and you need to remember that.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm sorry to be here on a sad day like this. I didn't realize it was going to happen, but I'd like to talk. I need your assistance. I need the city's assistance for what I would like to do.
Bill, will you give your name for the record, please?
Oh, Bill Austin. Yes, resident of Poulsbo since 1960. Anyway, I spoke about this incident some time ago, but I realized it's on county property, which is the overpass over Highway 3. Okay, so as you know, I go up to Walmart and to do shopping and stuff like that just about every day, which is rough enough because the sidewalks are there. But by the time I get to the overpass, I feel that. Are you gonna got some pictures for me? Oh, thank you. So you have another picture, Jess? Yes, thank you. As you can see, I took this picture from my EV, my electric vehicle, because I can't walk too well. And as you can see, the white line is gone. The reason it's gone is because vehicles are coming off of the highway, take a left turn and run over it as they go up to Walmart, etc. The other picture, if you may, is, as you can see in the distance, that is gone. Now, the city property ends up where I was sitting in my EV just now, and I took that picture. So therefore, that should be a sidewalk on the dirt there. And if there was a sidewalk there, you could leap over onto the, you can just see the white mark there in the distance. Then you'd be sort of comfortably safe. Because I've been longer, zip. Anyway, so I need some help from you, Mayor, and maybe the new mayor that's coming up at the end of the year, Ed. I'm voting for you, by the way. Now that's worth a lot. So I would like to talk to the county somehow. I think it's WashDOT or whoever they are, to see if I could get a sidewalk put here, and possibly some yellow cones that they have on the yellow line to separate people from driving over onto the bike lane. Okay. I'd like to know how to do that. If you could call me, or somebody who is in TV land watching it right now, you got my number. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin.
And you've done a good job too, by the way, Mayor, for that
Thank you.
last, how long now?
16 years.
Too damn long.
You're damn right.
Bye. Good luck, you guys. I'm leaving.
Hello, Poulsbo council members. I am Trishondra Picka. I'm a Suquamish tribal member. I am appointed by Governor Inslee. I sit on the Board of Commissions as a commissioner at the Criminal Justice Training Commission of Washington State. That's the board that governs the police in the state. I am also one of the founding members of the WCPA. We are the people who wrote the bill and got it passed for the Independent Investigations Office. I'm a stakeholder in that also. I am not here speaking on behalf of any of those organizations that I've just told you. I am here as the mother of Stone Child Chief Stick's children. Your police officer, Craig Heller, murdered my children's father. It started with Becky Erickson calling her goons on him, where they stalked and murdered him. I've heard of her facial expressions, so I was already aware of this, so I don't pay attention to ugliness. Here is the Justice Training Commission's new book on de-escalation and defense tactics. If anybody would like to look at it, I can hand it to you. You can pass it around. When you go to the first page on it, the number one is preservation of life. Number one in this book. Number two is reducing the use of force. So I've seen the videos. I was in a meeting with the families. We're talking about 2 human lives taken now in 5 years. People should be afraid to come to this land of your Vikings that sit on my tribe's ancestral land. You should be ashamed that you are allowing this. You need to have your officers sent back to Belia and get some more training. Because what I've seen, and I've seen different videos than this, we're talking about someone being pulled over for tinted windows that were supposedly too dark. My children were stalked up here a few months ago at Safeway. My kids went they seen the cop, of course they're gonna be scared. They went into Safeway, they came out, cop was there. My daughter calls, PTSD, they're scared of the Poulsbo police. Then she leaves, where the police officer proceeded to follow her to Bond Road. Followed her, she's turning left, heading towards Viking Way, still being followed, then pulled over for what? Tinted windows.
Ma'am,
There's
your
a
time
problem
is
with this.
expired. Thank you very much, dear.
I was here
Thank
to
you.
speak about Justin
Thank you very
and
much.
Stone Child,
Thank you very much. Your
and you
time
need
is
to
expired.
do something about this.
Thank you. Your time
Or
is
you're gonna
expired.
turn into the city of Kent and the city of Auburn.
Ma'am,
where
your
there was
time
just
is
a
expired.
convicted police officer.
Thank you.
Your time
Public
should have been
comments,
expired
please.
a long time ago.
Public comments, please.
Justin Mugling is my brother-in-law, and
Get your name, ma'am. I didn't hear your name.
Megan Zizek.
Thank you, Megan.
My husband is Jason Mugling, Justin's brother. Our family is obviously devastated. Justin was the uncle to my 4-year-old and my 10-year-old. And last Wednesday, on every Wednesday, he's typically at my house watching our son playing in the yard and swinging on the tire swing, playing with bugs. He engaged with my son and daughter like we couldn't because we're both working parents. And he was a huge, deep part of our family that is irreplaceable. And my 4-year-old may not even remember him growing up, but he was at our house almost every day. In fact, last Wednesday, he would have normally already been there, and he called his mom earlier, who was there watching my kids while I was at work, and said he was going to be later. He was probably on his way over as this occurred. We didn't even know, nobody told us. I actually saw it on the news and I thought that it was his car, and I ended up calling the police, all the police, and then had to call 911, and then the coroner eventually called us and said it was his. I want to thank the OII. We as a family met with them yesterday, and I am so grateful for their existence. They have been extremely supportive in giving us all the information about this, and thank God for them. Justin was pulled over at Lindvig Avenue and Viking Way for having windows that were too tinted dark. He did not stop, and yeah, he did not stop. What the fuck? I don't know why. But they pursued him at the speeds of 2 to 10 miles per hour. They put strips down, but those got wrapped up in his vehicle. He eventually was pushed off the road by Poulsbo police officers doing a pit maneuver. They ran into his car and pushed him off the road when he was going between 2 and 10 miles per hour. They immediately, and I'm sorry, I know my time's running out, but give me 30 more seconds, please. They immediately, pretty much, I mean, I've seen the video footage. I've gone over all of this with the OII. They almost immediately broke out his back window of his vehicle and shot pepper balls into the vehicle, likely blinding him. He probably thought they were shooting actual fire at him. He, of course, got out of the vehicle because he could not see or breathe. At that point, they continued to shoot pepper balls at his body while he was standing there. He probably thought he was being shot by firearms. I know my brother. He did have a knife. He probably thought he was being he probably thought he was being attacked. They tased him. He got up. They tased him again, and he, when he came to, they did not try to restrain him after they tased him. They let him stand back up. Yes, he did not drop the knife. He eventually, when he got up from the second tasing, he moved forward, lunging with the knife, at which point he was shot dead in the head multiple times. There is no reason that they could not have had a standoff with him. They could not have just tried to talk him out of the car. I understand that I'm over time, but they could have tried to talk him out of the car like they have done with the gentleman in Seattle with the sword,
I
or with
gave you an
many
extra
other
minute.
things. And that is unfortunately something, we will never know what our future held. My son and my daughter do not have an uncle anymore. A person who was extremely important in our family, in our life, and his father's life and his mother's life, who can't be here today because she cannot get out of the house.
Ma'am, I've given you an extra minute and a half. I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Thank you very much. Okay, comments from citizens, please.
My name is Carl Mogling. I'm Justin's father. Grief is a love word, and I am grieving. And I want to thank everybody here who also has grief because they love Justin. But I want to say that I used to live with Chief Don Cundiff of the Bremerton Police Department. A SWAT officer, Rick Forrester, paid my way into Alaska with my wife, and that's where Jason was born, in Ketchikan. I was involved in several narcotics investigations, but with Don Cundiff and Rick Forrester. So I know a thing about the 21-foot rule and grief. And so I just want to say that the day before the shooting, Justin said to Jason, the medication that they just put me on isn't working. I'm afraid, I'm a little paranoid, and I'm confused. And so that's why he was driving 2 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. He was trying to process it. He has bipolar illness. He died in Tacoma on fentanyl. And he was taken to the hospital and they put the electronic things on him, a Narcan in his nose. And they said, well, we've done all we can do. And they started to leave. And they couldn't leave because Justin's little blue eyes opened. And they had to open because I prayed for him for 35 years since all of his mental issues. We had to commit him and etc. But he was doing so good that they were going to come and live with Justin, and they were going to let him live in a trailer and babysit little William, 4-year-old William. And now that can't happen. But I had a few questions when they showed the father where they used an AR-15. And first they did the pepper spray and he went down and he was incapacitated for 5 seconds. Then they did it again and he was incapacitated for 5 seconds. My existential question to the OII, Office of where they investigate, and was, why didn't they rush him then and put the handcuffs on him when he was incapacitated? And then when they had the AR-15 on him, and he did throw the knife, but I think it was suicide by police because he was so heartbroken that he wanted to die so he wouldn't be in pain. And I don't think the police are wolves. I think they are shepherds among sheep. I don't have a quarrel with that. If it's an honest shooting, fine. If it's not, we'll be tied.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for your loss, sir.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you the mayor?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you for that.
thank you.
My name's Thomas Wilson. My cousin was murdered on July 3rd here in Poulsbo a few years ago. And now we're here for another experience that is hard for the community. It's bad for the community. And before this happened, 2 weeks prior, I'm driving through Poulsbo at 3 in the morning and I'm coming through the junction. Lo and behold, here comes a Poulsbo police officer going towards Bond Road, flips around, follows me through town. I pull off at the gas station. He continues past me, parks, backs in at the food bank there. And I drive past him again. He pulls out behind me, follows me, turns his headlights off at 3 a.m. He turns his headlights off and follows me for half a mile past Sherman Hill. And then he turns his headlights back on, flips around and goes off. Now, your police are intimidating your public. And the safety of our public is important. And then now, a week later, week and a half later, they murder this kid or this young man. And I wrote a letter, a few emails to you guys asking for an explanation on why your police are doing this. And nobody can give me a straight answer. I've got a few responses, but this intimidation to your public needs to stop. And these officers need to follow the same laws we need to follow. There's no reason that I should have a cop behind me with his headlights off, following me in the dark, driving down a public road and trying to put fear into my life. I've had enough fear from you guys. And this has got to stop. Something has to happen. And that's just what I had to say. Thank you guys for your time.
Just one more 30-second thing. I was also a counselor at Family Center Counseling in Sequim, and I was a NODAC drug and alcohol counselor in Port Angeles. And I just, if I could humbly and in grace beg you to please have your officers, when they see the license plate, if you can see that that person has had mental issues, try to then have an alternative working plan to deal with the mentally ill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Van Gelder. I recently retired, so I'm speaking only for myself. And I want to share how deeply saddened I am right now. The stories we just heard are just heartbreaking. The stories we just heard were preventable. This young man didn't have to die. I went through a process with many of you after Stone Child Chief Stick died. And I fervently hoped that we as a community would have learned something, and in particular, the city of Poulsbo would have learned something. And now I'm left wondering, was anything learned? Was there anything different about what just happened? I have so many questions. How do we know we're safe in Poulsbo? How do we know we're safe when we're seeing this kind of behavior? I hadn't even thought about it, but I have a tinted window on my car. Am I no longer safe? Have I never been safe coming through Poulsbo? Or does my white skin and being an older woman, does that protect me? Is that what's protecting me? If so, what about other members of our community who don't look like this? Is it okay for them to be at risk every day? The purpose of having police is to protect us, not to be our occupying force, not to treat people of color as though they're second rate and deserve and can be subjected to any sort of behavior. I have so many questions, and I know we just heard that there will be investigation. We're getting independent investigation from the state, which I'm delighted to hear will be happening. It sounds like they've already done some important work. But one of my questions is, if that is true, what you just said about we need to wait for the results of the investigation, why were we subjected to the most violent, traumatizing minutes of video that you had? Why did you do that if you didn't want us to already have a conclusion in mind? I find it just stunning, that combination of things that just happened. And really, after all that we've been through together, I expected better.
Hey, my name's Danielle Reeb. Sadly, I witnessed the cop lights flood into downtown Poulsbo on July 3rd. Hey, Becky, how's it going? I noticed you weren't making eye contact with many of the speakers.
I'm trying.
Okay, well, it's good. I saw that and immediately friends texted that a man had been shot amidst a crowd. Then I have my kids in North Kitsap School District, and they were threatened by a white boy in a picture online with a gun saying, cut up all the beaners. And we were told that that didn't matter. It wasn't a real threat and it was dismissed. And so I was personally threatened. My job was threatened. Hey, Becky, I just want to make sure we're connecting. Because you know you're in charge of like who's hired on, like as far as police, you've been in charge of many things. And then now we're at this. So my husband's brown and our truck is a couple years old. It has tinted windows. Is he in danger? I wonder if you could tell me, Becky. Because the day that happened, he got sick and had to stay home from work the next day. So we lost a full day's pay. How does that, is that cool? Like, is that cool? Like, how many people felt sick after that? I don't know. My kids are afraid. They know someone like their dad could be shot. Hey, Becky, I just want to make sure we're talking to each other. And as a city council, you guys hold the mayor accountable. You guys are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The mayor is 1. You can hold her accountable. I'm asking you to step up in your role and hold her accountable. Is it too much to ask that the police don't shoot weapons at people that are in mental crisis? Is that too much to ask for our city council to stand up for? I'm a mental health counselor. What happens if I need to call 911? Am I subjecting my client to potential death? Am I, Becky? Think about the bind you put our entire community in that cares for people that don't have access to care. Is that cool? Is that cool? Like, I'm just asking questions. I just want to know.
I think we have time for one more comment, and then we have to move on with our meeting. Thank you.
My name's Emily Rose. My family has been here since the 1800s. The Martinson Museum is part of my family. I am deeply rooted in Suquamish. I grew up 3 streets away from Justin. I hate the fact that you can't look at anybody when they are speaking. You're itching your head. Do you have lice? Like, what is going on? You are so rude and showing no respect to these people who have lost their family. I would hate for something like this to happen to you and have you be in this situation. It's not fair. And it's not fair that our people of color in this town don't feel safe driving around, don't feel safe if they're in a crisis and they have no one to call. Because why? They're afraid that they're going to get shot and killed by your minions.
One more comment, and then we have to move on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brenda Calderon. I was here during the Stone Child murder, advocating for justice for Stone Child. During that time, the community was grieving and asking for more effort for de-escalation. And now, 5 years later, 6 years later, we see that that's not working, and it's unacceptable. Losing someone else, another Indigenous community member, is unacceptable. In a city that prides itself in being Vikings, being white, that's unacceptable. We asked for de-escalation back then, and the initiative had just been passed. The excuse was, it has just been passed. We have no actual system framework for this. 5, 6 years later, we still don't have a good system or framework for this. The rage is in our community. We don't want to die. We don't want to be shot by police. This is not okay. This is not okay. Everyone is afraid. Policing in the country is increasing and it's dangerous. And in our community, it's dangerous. It's already been proven many times. We want change. We want accountability. We want to see the police be accountable for murdering somebody, for murdering 2 people, Stonechild and Justin. I don't care if he was in a mental health crisis. I don't care what was happening. That should be the last resort, shooting someone. What we saw in that video was escalation. We did not see de-escalation. We saw escalation.
I want to thank you all for your comments. It is now 6 o'clock, and so we need to move on with our meeting. The next thing in our agenda this evening is mayor's reports and council comments. Mr. McVeigh, how are you this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you particularly to the family members of Justin who came to share your stories with us this evening. I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it. These are difficult situations. I know you're grieving. Very difficult for the family. I would ask for your respect, sir. I would ask for your respect, or please leave the room. Classy, very classy, sir. As I'm trying to express my condolences to the family, I would appreciate being able to do that. So thank you. Thank you for being here. It's hard to hear. I'm sorry that Justin was going through apparently a mental health crisis. I'm sorry to learn that, and sorry for his pain and for your pain. Okay.
He wasn't. He was fine.
Let me, if I could address a couple of things. I was one of the city council members who encouraged the mayor, city administrator Gelder, and our police chief to show the body cam footage tonight. I thought it was important in the spirit of transparency and accountability. That is a piece of information that we have that the city of Poulsbo owns. We got permission from the Office of Independent Investigations to show the video. I find it interesting that people are criticizing us for showing the video. If we hadn't shown the video, we would have been accused of covering up, of hiding things. So I hope you see that you can, we're navigating as best we can here. Maybe at the end of this, I might ask the mayor if we could have Chief Harding speak a little bit to the increased training that our officers have been receiving over the last several years. I know firsthand that the training has increased and how hard our officers work. Apparently, it's interesting that we can watch the same video and have very different reactions to it. Okay.
So we watched the video. We had a very different perspective on
Okay.
that as a family.
So thank you again for being here. We are committed to having an open and transparent process within the guidelines that we are given by the new State Office of Independent Investigations. And I'm happy to hear that the family has visited with them, that they've been impressed with them. I've heard similar things from our police officers in their interactions with the new office. So I'm hopeful that will be a helpful step that we did not have 6 years ago. So thank you again for being here. Please know that city council members will continue to monitor this as best we can and do everything we can to continue to provide public safety and let this be the best community it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McVeigh. Mr. Eckert, please.
Yeah, Gary said it very well. I'll just say, thank you for coming, particularly the family. We're all grieving. We have to let the investigation go forth, and then we will see. That's all we can do. as to your last point, sir, we have a wonderful navigator that works with our police, who does exactly what you said, who tries to do exactly what you said. Our Health and Human Services Department is the front of that field, and brought us a wonderful person to work that. He's not here this evening, but I'm sure that at some point down the road you can meet him, and I think you would be impressed. He's amazing at his job, because we try to do exactly that every chance. And we have a staff there that does engage in every way possible to help folks. So it's a different part of the process, but we've worked on it as much as we can. I'm not going to say a lot because, like I said, we have to let the process go forth. It's tough all around. The only other thing I just want to say is these kind of things overshadow a lot of other things. And so I just want to point out, Saturday, we opened a park, and when I left the park to do my errands, I went up to Home Depot. And as I got there, I saw lights. And there was an elderly citizen who had driven through a barrier, through the handicap sign, up onto the berm, and had a tree embedded a good foot into her vehicle. And there was one of our officers helping her. Our officers do a lot of amazing work every day. Remember that, please, because they had over 13,000 encounters last year. 13,000. 7 involved force. The reports are online. They're on their website. You can look at them for the last, I think, 6-7 years. So over 13,000 and 7 involved force. And I did the math. It's 0.005. So they work very hard to keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you.
Lisa here. went
Just,
to a-
this is not a time for dialogue, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Tabor, your turn.
I'd also like to express my condolences to the family and friends of Justin, and and appreciate the comments from my fellow council members, and thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your grief. I hear the anguish. I hear the disappointment. Sorry, sir. And thank you for sharing about what you have been a part of, some of the better parts of your contributions in reference to what you referenced to law enforcement and your hope for law enforcement. There's nothing I can say that would make this better. Only thing I can say is that collectively as a community, as a whole, including our law enforcement, and in my role and my responsibility is that we can do better. So I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Ms. Crowe. Ms. Livdahl.
I'm incredibly sorry for what you're going through right now and your loss. Every loss is tragic, and this is no exception. I'm really not going to comment on what we've seen because the Office of Independent Investigation needs to do their job. And
You only saw part of it.
yes, sir. I just want everyone to be reminded that all of us up here are also human and we are not robots. And this affects us deeply. And I don't know, my colleagues have said everything pretty well. I've had the opportunity to spend time with some of our officers in the police department, and it's been almost 6 years since Stone Child was killed, and frankly, it's not the same department at all. And I think all of the system can use work always, obviously. But I have a lot of respect for our department and where we're headed and what we want to do and the ways in which we've really been pioneers in the area of behavioral health and integrating it into law enforcement. And it's clear that that needs to continue and broaden, and that there needs to be better access. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Ms. Livdahl. Mr. Knoll.
Certainly a tragic event. As someone said, it does affect us all differently. The emotions of joy of life and family and starts and stops and how we participate to end in such a violent way without fully understanding the context. I am thankful that we have an Office of Independent Investigation to help us understand better. I'm just hoping for everybody to be able to heal at some point, although it might take a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Mr. Stern.
We, my council colleagues up here, we hear you. I hear you.
Thank you.
I too am very sorry for your loss. Everyone in this chamber is hurting right now. No one wants this, ever. And I would imagine you are hurting most of all. And there's no way that we sitting here can take that pain away. We can't. I'm just truly sorry. And I too am glad that we have a state organization that can do an independent investigation so that we can truly know what happened. And all I can say is that I wish it hadn't happened. I wish it hadn't happened. So thank you all for coming this evening. We're going to be moving on with our meeting. We have some work we have to do. God bless y'all. God bless y'all. Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed in, oh, excuse me, I missed board and commission reports. Do we have any board and commission reports tonight? Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the city council for reading and study and are considered to be routine. It is item A, and I'd entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, move to approve consent agenda item A.
Second.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Crow, aye.
Livdahl.
Newell, aye.
Stern, aye.
Thank you, council. And now on to the business agenda. We have a public hearing for the water rates and the general facility charge increase and stormwater general facility increase. And this is Charlie, it says.
Good evening, council. We'll bring up a presentation here, make it, sorry. So we've talked about this a few times over the last couple of months. We're proposing a rate increase in alignment with our water comprehensive plan and increases to our stormwater and water general facility charges. We had a workshop last week where we touched on the rates, and prior to that, we had workshops on both water and stormwater. And so this is the public hearing for both of those rate increases. And I'd be happy to go into the numbers, or we can have a public hearing, whichever you guys would prefer.
This is a public hearing regarding rate increases, and with that, we call for public comment. If you have public comment regarding the rate increases for our utilities, please step to the podium. You have 5 minutes for the record and state your name. Any comments on the public hearing for utility changes? Seeing none, the comment period is now closed. Go ahead, Charlie.
With that, I'd entertain any questions you guys may have and then propose a motion.
Questions?
Mayor, we've had the opportunity to debate the new rates quite a bit. We have benchmarked them to other comparable cities. It's been some time since we've increased some of these rates. And it's important, I think, for the future of our city and public works to make sure that this infrastructure continues to operate and provide good service to the citizens of Poulsbo. So knowing that, I'm happy to make a motion. Move to approve the proposed water rate increase, water general facility charge increase, and stormwater general facility charge increase in accordance with water and stormwater system plans, and direct staff to prepare an ordinance for adoption to make revisions effective.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, and I just wanted to forget what Gary said. I think it's important that the work that was done with this continues to put a heavier onus on new construction. That we keep the new construction pays for itself. We don't put the burden on our existing citizens for new construction. I think that's an important philosophy that's been established in the city and would continue to carry it forward. And then the other point, I might be stealing Mr. Stern's thunder, is that, you know, we have an obligation to our utilities in a secondary hat, that we keep our utilities in the black. And so we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this to make sure that we keep our utilities well resourced to support those utilities currently and in the future. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor up.
Pro I. Livdahl I.
Bill, aye.
Stern, aye.
Thank you, council. Now, we are moving on to ordinance number 2025-05, the 2024 fourth quarter budget amendments, and this is Deb.
Good evening. There is no presentation. Is your fourth quarter budget amendments that were approved in the fourth quarter of 2024. The reason for the delay in putting this forward is we need to calculate all the end of year balances to assure that we do not have to do a budget amendment to reflect any overages in funds. So you should have a memo with that attached to detail what budget amendments were approved during the quarter. And this needs to be opened up for public comment.
Okay, this is a budget, the ordinance for our fourth quarter budget amendments. It is now time for public comment. If you have any comment regarding the budget amendments as presented, please come to the podium and state your name for the record. Comments for the budget adjustments, amendments, changes. Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval, please.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question if I could
Okay,
here.
go ahead, Mr. McVeigh.
One of the items, one of the budget amendments is in regards to the historic downtown Poulsbo Association watering services for watering hanging baskets and plants. This is because the contractor that HDPA had arranged to do the summer watering of the flowers downtown had some significant health problems. HDPA, as my understanding, has been searching for an alternate vendor to do the watering. The city here is stepping up to help, at least on a temporary basis. And I can't recall if this $11,090, how long of a period is that for? We talked about helping out through the end of May. Is the 11,000 for just that period of time? Is it for, or is it for a longer period of time?
This is for the watering that was done in 2024.
Ah.
Public Works calculated, they kept track of all their hours and their time, and we billed the Historic Association for that amount due. And it's the budget to reflect the revenue coming in as well as what the city charged.
Okay, my apologies that I got the years mixed up.
No, that's okay. You'll probably will see one
If that's the
again.
worst time mistake I make tonight, I'm probably doing it.
You will see another one
my
in
apologies.
25, I'd assume, so.
Okay, now, can I'm sorry, it's been a rough evening already. I've forgotten where we are. Do we have a motion and a second on the table? Can I ask for a motion, please?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2025 TAC 05-2024 fourth quarter budget amendments.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Now, is any further questions about this ordinance regarding the amendments? Questions? Okay. If there's no further questions and no further discussion, Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Pro I.
Livdahl, aye.
Newell, aye.
Stern, aye.
Thank you, council. And now we're on to the Liberty Landing final plat. Nope. 2025 pavement, oh, excuse me, we've got the pavement preservation first. You guys, it's gonna be a long night because I have to admit, I'm pretty tired. 2025 pavement preservation construction contract, and this is Charlie.
Yeah, I'll make this pretty short and sweet. The good news is that we got really good bids on the pavement preservation project, and it's a contractor we've worked with before. So no reason not to move ahead with this project. We're doing a scrub seal with a fog seal over the top of it. Kind of on the map you can see here, it's most of the neighborhood up in Forest Rock Lane, Calder Heights area, so about 2 miles of roadway. And this is part of our local roads preservation funding that's been set aside. So this project's proposed to be completed August, September timeframe this year.
Questions for Charlie? Go ahead, Mr. Newell.
Yeah, Charlie, you throw bid tabs in front of me. It usually creates a question or 5 for me. The estimate for a unit cost, interesting to see that variation. I mean, that's a petroleum product. I would have, it's pretty basic stuff. The estimate seemed higher than.
Take the hit on that.
Okay.
Come on up, Mike.
Yeah, we used a City of Leavenworth's project as a sample, and they had put their bid together pretty differently. So we just took a total and divided it what we were doing.
So this wasn't a government estimate from an estimator on this side of the water?
No.
Or in this area?
No, this is, we took.
That's fine. That's fine. On something that basic, it's like price of a 2x4 in my mind.
Yeah.
It's not a complicated thing. It's a square yard of petroleum product. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. I'm good. Thanks.
Good, okay. All right. So any further questions regarding the 2025 pavement preservation construction contract award? Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on, really appreciate that the bids were significantly lower than planned because our neighborhood streets fund is not endless, and I appreciate every time you come in under budget for us, of course. But this much under just means that's that many more streets that we can take care of. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. McVeigh.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Charlie and Mike. As some of my colleagues who have been on council for a while know, we've made significant progress in the neighborhood streets program, at least in my time on council over the last 6 years. I do get a little worried that because we have the neighborhood streets program, we sort of may be too complacent over the condition of some of our other streets, particularly those in Old Town that really at this point we're saying don't qualify for the neighborhood streets program because they have so much work that needs to be done under the pavement in regards to sewer and water and so forth. So I just want to remind us that we have a hell of a lot of roads in this city that have some real significant problems that are not being addressed by the neighborhood streets program. I'm in favor of the program. I think we're making good progress on those streets that are still in good enough shape to be saved, if you will, to get extended life out of them by the seal coatings that we're doing. But folks, we still have a lot of work to do in my mind. I'll be happy to make a motion if that would help. And
You can make a motion, maybe Mr. Newell will second it, and then make a comment.
Second, and
Okay, go ahead.
okay, all right. Move to award construction contract for the 2025 pavement preservation project to Doolittle Construction in the amount of $242,670. Authorize the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the city and authorize the mayor to sign change orders up to 10% of the contract value.
second, and I guess I'd have a question. for
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Newell.
Charlie and Diane, from the standpoint of the fact that this, if there is an opportunity to do additional preservation work, if it's scope, weather permits, certainly our budget seems to permit, I think it would, at least some of us on council would be open to you bringing in a change to increase scope if we can to preserve more of our streets.
Yeah, and I did chat with Mike about that, and I also chatted with the contractor about that,
Okay.
and they're of
Alright.
course open to it, so.
That was my,
No,
Yeah,
I-
we're
I-
talking about it, it's just whether we have the bandwidth to add more to it.
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Newell. I think that it would be nice to do as many as we possibly can. Mr. Eckert?
Yeah, it's, like what Gary said, we do have a lot of other streets that are beyond this point and need a different solution. I think that's something the council should be thinking about for the future. We're gonna be talking about transportation later, but that's mostly major streets. There's a lot of neighborhoods with old streets, that need help. 4 or 5 months ago, I had gotten an email from one of our citizens asking about the street. I talked to Mike, he gave me the lowdown. I went over, drove it, let them know where we stood, and basically it was a rebuild and there's no funds for it. They thanked me for looking into it. And, but that wasn't a solution. It was just a response. We got a lot of neighborhoods like that. So I think at some point, we need another path to be thinking about.
I will just say that this treatment that we're doing this time is a little bit more than just the seal coat. It's actually a chip seal on top, and then it's basically it's a seal coat, a chip seal on top of that, and then a scrub seal on top of that. So it gives it a little bit more structural integrity, a little bit longer lifestyle. So
It's not quite an overlay, but it's a real scrubbing.
it's where a lot of people are going, a lot of municipalities are going just because of the dollars for grinding overlay and complete rebuild. So.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further conversation? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. McVeigh?
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Grow I, Livdahl.
Newell, aye.
Stern, aye.
Thank you, council. Now we're moving on to the Liberty Landing final plat. And I don't see Michael here. Are you Michael? Are you playing Michael tonight? Welcome, Josh.
All right. Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. Give me 1 second to pull this up.
I didn't know.
Okay, here we go. All right, so we are here tonight for the Liberty Landing final plat acceptance. This should go pretty quick. So if you're not familiar with the project, it is on Hamilton Court, just off of Jensen Way. Just off of the north side of the Poulsbo Place development, highlighted here. So just a little bit about the project. It was approved back in 2019 on the site plan approval, or the plat approval, preliminary plat, sorry. And the site consists of 8 lots on 0.86 acres. It adds 2 private driveways that you'll see there internal to the plat. And then it also reconstructed Hamilton Court that you can see shaded here down to Jensen Way. So just to show you a couple of quick photos of what the construction looks like today. This is here when they were wrapping up with the roadway construction. And then this photo here, you can see that they have started construction on 4 homes. Now, I will note that these 4 homes are considered model homes. So they are allowed to start construction prior to final plat up to 4 homes on any plat development. So that's what they've got approval for so far. Once they get final plat approval, then they can go forward with the rest of their homes. Again, just another picture of the foundations. So we have reviewed the project and the conditions of approval, and all of those have been met. The applicant has provided maintenance bonds for the infrastructure dedicated to the city, and they've been posted. They have a performance bond for the final driveway. So you'll notice here in the current photo that the driveways, the asphalt within internal to the plat have not been constructed. So we did require them to bond for that. And so these bonds do not allow them to get certificate of occupancy of the homes until they have completed all of these. So that's the internal driveways, the landscaping, and site amenities. And with that, we do recommend approval of the final plat and would entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay, this is Liberty Landing final plat. Any questions or concerns?
I'll do a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Tabor.
Move to approve the final plat for Liberty Landing Development.
Is there-
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or conversations about this?
I just have one question for Josh. On one of the other documents, it showed across the street, there's a strip that was marked as right of way. And I just wondered if there was anything that was part of the plan to do. It's kind of in the, yeah, it's harder to see, but yeah, that little green triangle-ish section. Is there anything that's the developer's planning to do with that, or is that just gonna be kind of left the way it is? Like, is that?
So that actually, you'll see it on this drawing here on their final plat, was right-of-way dedication as part of the process. So they did dedicate that.
But no, like, not gonna be turned into a grassy area amenity, anything like that. It's just gonna be.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, it's mostly being utilized as parking over there currently for the local residents.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
point of clarification, the motion that was just read that was in the presentation is slightly different than the one in the packet. The one in the packet includes the language authorizing the mayor to sign on behalf of the city. Is it important to have that in there?
I don't think so, but would you like to rephrase the motion?
What's that?
No, sorry. It's not necessary because the city engineer and our planning director will sign the final plat.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're getting tripped up on some language here.
No, that's a good catch, Gary. It's a good catch.
I'm 1 for 1 tonight.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions regarding this? I would like to say that this is one of the ones that there was some contentiousness about tree retention. And if you'll go back to the picture, you'll see that there's 2 trees that were taken, but there's 3 that still remain in the back. So there is some tree retention on this particular development. But they did lose a couple trees, although there is a pretty substantial landscaping plan that goes with it. So, Mr. Tabor?
And I just have to add, because I live, right next to this, the sidewalk improvement is really already a big highlight just for the community to be able to walk that way on a sidewalk. Before it was just curb. Yeah, great, thank you. Nice add.
Okay, so no more conversation. There is a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh?
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Pro I.
Livdahl, aye.
Newell, aye.
Stern, aye.
Thank you, council. That is our final business agenda item. Would you guys want to take 10-minute break?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we will begin again at 6:43. thing on our workshop agenda, we're reconvening now, please, is the city administrator and department head comments. Okay, guys.
Good evening. I just have a few items for council this evening. One is just a bit of a heads up on we are going to be executing an amendment to the employment agreement with Judge McKeeman, because the language in the accruals didn't have it identified as an exempt employee. And so we need to make that little tweak so that the accrual rates are correct. So just a little heads up on that. Also to know that the AWC annual meeting is coming up the end of June. Just a quick show of hands. I can't recall who is going. So we have 3. All right. So we have the opportunity. They have put out the notice to identify our voting delegates for the annual meeting, and the AWC bylaws actually allow for each city to appoint up to 3 voting delegates. So if it's okay with the council, if our 3 council members that are going can be our voting delegates, then we can communicate that to AWC and have that taken care of on a time.
Rob, we'll also need to send them our city flag for the parade of flags. Thank you.
Not having seen that before, is that like a big flag? Okay. All right. We will make sure that gets done. Certainly. Next, I just wanted to give a shout out to Public Works and the ADA improvements that have been happening all around the city. I don't know if you've had the opportunity, because sometimes when we're driving around, we don't slow down enough to see them. But just kudos, for the volume, but also there's some, look a little bit closer, and there's some creativity that I know that Josh had his hand in. So the one thing that really I loved was going up Iverson to 4th, and the corners were being done and all that, but what's going to happen to that island? But that island is really cool because the color of the crosswalk from the one corner to the island is different, and the texture is different, and it's just a wonderful, I don't know, you can kind of Jones out on these kind of things. It's really cool. So, but it's just those small touches that are really, I think, help make the improvements extra special. Nobody earlier talked about the upcoming weekend. This is Viking Fest weekend. So it's going to be very busy in town. Do be aware, for anyone that's watching the meeting as well, of road closures, detours, etc. But Saturday morning, bright and early, there will be our Viking road race. So do know that that's coming up. May not be too late to register if you got a little energy and your muscles are limber, and you can run around town as well. But last but definitely not least, is a thank you to Chief Harding, to his leadership team, and all of the officers as well. I have to say that I've had the luxury over the past 4 months or so that I've been here with the city to engage in a lot of one-on-one conversations with the staff up and down the spectrum. And a lot of those in the recent past have been with our officers in our police force. And I have to say that the chief and his team have assembled, from my perception and the way I got to know these folks, are a group of a cadre of individuals who have an extreme passion for community. And truly, as much as tragedy can happen, there is definitely a shift in, the foundation that is structural to our ability to be able to truly be a community policing, a partner with every resident in our community. And I just want to thank the chief and his staff for that. They're just, they have passion for the work that they do, and our residents are their number one. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Good evening, Council. I wanted to provide you an update on the comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission last night held their public hearing and they are recommending approval and adoption of the comp plan as presented, as well as the implementing land development regulations. We had about 15 to 20 people show up last night for the hearing. They were mostly there in support of the mobile home park overlay that's being proposed through the implementing development regulations. So that will be coming before you all at a workshop on June the 4th, and then the hearing is still scheduled for June the 18th. As you all know, the legislative session has wrapped up. There are some bills that will be impacting planning. We'll be discussing those in the months to come. But I do want you to know we have our eyes on that. And otherwise, I don't have any other updates until I speak to you all about parking in a few hours or so. Thank you.
Few hours. Jeez.
That sounds optimistic.
Nothing good? Diane?
Yeah, on behalf of the department, I just want to express my gratitude to the mayor and to council, to Rob, for the support that you showed us. And I think tonight was an example of your incredible professionalism to show compassion for the family that's, their lives have been changed forever. But you were able to do that in a way that not only expressed empathy for them, but also your understanding of the impacts this has on the human beings that work as police officers. And I thank you for that and for your thoughtfulness.
Good evening, Council. Couple of nice items to share about the Nordic Cottage project. I'm not sure if Council is aware, but the capital budget this year includes $412,000 for the project. High praise to our lobbyist, Brian McConaughey, for fighting for that, and deep thanks to Representative Tara Simmons for making that happen for the city. On a related note, Mayor Erickson has been nominated for an award by the Kitsap Housing and Homelessness Coalition. There's an award ceremony happening on the 21st of this month. It'll happen before we meet next for council. Also being honored, our Dean Nail of Housing Kitsap, who's been so instrumental in this project, as well as Tom Duchemin of Gateway Fellowship. I'll be presenting the award for the project. It's being recognized for innovation in housing. And again, that's the 21st. And of course, we're just so happy about the way that project is developing. So thank you.
You know, it's not fair for me to get any award. I mean, it's something like the Nordic Cottages takes everybody sitting around this table, all the council. I don't know how many staff have been dragged into this thing, so it isn't fair, but I'll bring it back and share it with everybody else. Okay, questions and concerns of the council.
I have a
Go
question.
ahead.
Sorry, I'm behind on all things AWC. Is it too late to register for that, or there probably aren't? I can connect with you.
Yeah, reach out to us in the morning and we
Okay.
can see availability of hotels, but it shouldn't be too late to register for the event.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
It's kind of hard to plan that far out with my other job.
Yeah.
So.
Ms. Livdahl. Mr. McVeigh? No? No? Anyone?
So last week I announced to the public that I will be at Cafe Cucina at 3:30, and so no one's been showing up to those, but I think next time I'm gonna say, like, email me and I'll come to you. But the good news is the baristas there have a lot of
Really good information.
a lot of good information and a pulse on the community. So if you ever hang out there for a few hours, they'll talk to you about what's going on. here in
Wait, Doug,
Poulsbo.
I showed up.
Yeah, and then Ed showed up. Yeah, you see people. You sit around there long enough.
When I started doing my office hours, it took about 6 months before people started to show up routinely. So it takes time to build, for people to know that you're there,
Maybe they'll offer snacks or something.
and you just keep doing it over and over and over, and then eventually they start coming. So it's a good thing to do. It's good reaching out to them. Any other questions and concerns? Rick, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to share, since Kim's here, and she brought up Nordic Cottages. So I had mentioned I had gone to Representative Nance's town hall down in Bremerton a couple weekends ago. And it was interesting because one of the The concerns there were, they're very different than the concerns that were brought up when he did it here in our city hall. But one of them, several of them kind of coalesced around housing and helping folks in trouble and all that. And one of the folks that was there asked kind of a general question of, what can we do to, how can we tackle this problem? What can we do? What can the city do? And Greg kind of didn't really have an answer right away. And the two council members from Bremerton were sort of looking at each other. And I said, well, I can tell you what Poulsbo is doing. And I talked about the Nordic cottages, and I talked about the recovery center, and I talked about the recovery housing. And then was like, sorry to make it all about Poulsbo, but that person was like, no, that's great. And I'm like, and it's small, but we're starting. And so, you know, you should get an award, and you should get an award. And, you know, the award should keep coming, because other places are seeking solutions like what we're doing. And the more we can spread the word, you know, maybe they'll tackle them and try, because they want solutions like this and just need to get the momentum behind to do it.
If Poulsbo can do it.
Right. I guarantee Bremerton's got some room.
It's just turn. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to Ms. Henderson's remarks and having spoken with Brian McGonahay, I would ask us to entertain a letter from the city thanking Representative Tara Simmons for her leadership on this role. And that might be an opportunity for each of the council as well to sign on that.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Questions and concerns of the council? Okay, so then we're gonna move on to item C, resolution number 2025 ZIP, a fireworks advisory ballot measure, and this is Rhiannon. We're just doing all kinds of fun things tonight, aren't we? Okay.
Yes, so if you remember last year, we had the discussion if we wanted to have an advisory vote to the citizens and then what time we should have it. And Councilmember Eckert, worked with me and the mayor, and we discovered it's not going to be much more, if anything, if we run it during the general election. So our city administrator Gelder asked me to start working on the resolution, which we've drafted with our city attorney. And this is for your consideration, so we can pin it to the auditor to put on the ballot in the general election.
Okay, Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you know, the council that's been here a little while, you all heard me for years talking about this from the podium. And I think this was the fairest way to move forward on this issue, where it's not anecdotal. It's not just somebody loud like me, folks that are on social media, and folks that don't live here, that are commenting. So let's get a true pulse from our residents in our city on what they want in our city. I think this is the best, fairest way to do it. And what we found is a way to not cost them more money to find that out either. So I would have loved to do it earlier, but it would have cost us money. November.
A couple questions. Do we have to write the pro piece for the
I can find out
ballot?
about it, but this is more advisory. What do the citizens want? Not a pro or a con, just what do you want?
But there's no pro or con with this, because normally in everything I've seen in a voter's pamphlet, there's a pro and a con.
We're not
Yeah, that's
affecting
usually
any
like
change.
levies and stuff like this. Since it's just an advisory, I think it's just a yes, no. I don't think there's a,
You need to.
Steve didn't mention it.
It'd be like a summary statement of, like, to.
We'll probably need a summary statement of what we're looking at, but, and I can follow up with that question
Yeah,
with
you-
Steve Gardner.
Yeah, ask Steve Gardner and see if we do a pro and con on it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Mayor, I had a
Mr.
question.
Sure, go ahead.
So Rhiannon, I read the document in the packet. I'm comfortable with moving forward with the advisory vote. I think the suggested language of the question to pose to voters looks appropriate to me. I'm still just a little bit confused about what the anticipated cost is going to be. Can you help clarify that for us?
I can't give you an anticipated cost. They could tell me what happened in 2023. He says this will be the cheapest time period, because we already have the 4 on the ballot. This is just another item. It's being distributed throughout all the other districts that have votes going on at that time, and we'll also have a legislative race, which we didn't have in 2023.
Okay, so based on 2023, I know you've got like a per voter cost here, whatever, but did he give you sort of a total cost?
No, this
So
is
we don't know how
verbatim
many
what I got from him, and
We
he
don't know how
didn't give
many
me
people participated in that vote, so we can,
I was gonna-
5,000 or so?
yeah. But what he indicated is that it's based on the number of items on the ballot.
Right.
And since at 3 or more, the cost doesn't change. And so since there's 3 council positions and the mayoral position on there, we're already at 4.
Okay.
So if we add the advisory vote, there's no additional cost because
Okay.
of the vote.
Okay.
So whatever we're paying for those 4 elections now, we would,
Okay.
that's the same cost.
So we're
Okay.
getting a bulk discount as well.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
had we put it on, like if you noticed in the packet, if we put it on in February where we didn't have anything else,
Right.
Right.
then
Okay.
the entire cost would be the cost of this vote.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. And then just sort of further clarification, we have in here, it says the 2025 budget is 17,000 allocated for election costs and 45,000 for voter registration costs. Can you, what is sort of the difference there? I'm not, what do we pay for voter registration costs?
Those are our costs typically, and it's been going over each year for voter registration, because they can't tell us the exact cost it's going to be. And the things that they do to help increase voter registration and protect it has been increasing each year. We went over budget last year based on what they gave us as a recommended budget, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so,
thank you.
go ahead, Pam.
I have a question about the resolution and, on section 3 ballot proposition, that's, from what I understand, a draft, of what would look like on the ballot?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I realized I didn't realize it would involve the sale possession. I thought it was lighting fireworks. I don't know why. That's where my mind went. So it's gonna fold in all of those, the sale, possession, and discharge? Oh, well, I'm a little behind, because I thought it was, yeah. Okay, just question, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, that is an important nuance. So possession would not be allowed within the city of Poulsbo. Would that be a enforceable?
What I'm thinking.
Well, guys, I mean,
Well, we can table it.
it's just that we have lots of laws that are questionably enforceable. That doesn't mean we don't make them.
Well,
Like a parking comes
I'm
to
just
mind.
thinking, you're driving down Highway 305 and you get pulled over and you look in the back seat and there is obvious fireworks that have been purchased legally down. Is that illegal then, based on these
I
words?
don't know the answer to that, but I think we certainly can find that out.
Yeah, I think our intent was the discharge of them,
Yeah, that's
the
right.
nuisance of it. Good point, Pam.
And would you also want to keep sale, because I don't see why we'd want to sell them, and we don't want them to discharge them here.
Right.
Okay,
Sale.
so maybe it's just the
It's
the
the
possession. Okay.
The possession piece.
Yeah. Okay.
Clarification on that, please.
Okay,
I think it's worth asking the question, but in the enforcement realm, I know what has been explained in the past of why it's hard to enforce our current ordinances is you have to see somebody do it. It's, it's hard to catch somebody in the moment. So if one of our officers pulls up on someone and they saw a firework go up and they drive up to, a minute later to where it clearly came up from, but they don't see the person light it off, without possession, it might make it a lot harder for them to do anything about it. Whereas, I drove up into Robb Park last year and people quickly go into their car with a Homer bucket from Home Depot full of mostly discharged fireworks that were clearly, they had been up there shooting fireworks off in Robb Park and, left when they heard a car coming. If we don't have possession, now they're having to make some serious, either race up there to get there or so I think we should find out the particulars, but
Why don't we do this?
we slice this up too much and it's gonna be
Why
useless.
don't we do this? We'll run it by the chief and see what he thinks will work most effectively, and then we'll go from there.
And I can bring these concerns back to Emily as well and ask her
That'd be
thoughts.
helpful.
Okay,
Well,
chief? Yeah.
God, I hate talking about fireworks. I hate fireworks. Okay.
Well, you bring up a really very good point. Possession and both of the nuances of it have just been expressed. I think that's something that we're going to have to consult with the attorneys to narrow that down so that it can be an enforceable statute. Yeah. And
It would almost be possession with the intent to discharge within the city.
that's what I'm thinking, some kind of
Yes.
element that allows us to do the common sense decision. If you're holding the match and you have the candle, you
Right.
know.
And you're
So
inside the
what's the
city limits.
timeline on this? When do we have to have it by, back to Steve?
We have to have it in August, so we're ahead of this, so we can get more feedback from Emily and bring
Okay.
it back for further discussion.
All right. Any other questions regarding this? So we'll fine tune it a little bit, run it by Emily again, then we'll bring it back and probably put it on the business agenda just to make
Yeah,
sure.
and just for early business, the elections would certify towards the end of November. The potential would be for city council to take action potentially in December or January, based on the advisory vote.
Yes.
This is an
interesting-
advisory vote.
Yes.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's
And
an
it would-
advisory vote, and any change that potentially could be adopted by council would have a very long runway for actual implementation for it to go into effect. Because nothing can go into effect a year. You've got this whole year. So if you did something in January, it would not affect July of next year.
Yeah.
It would
So you're
be
looking
the
at
entire year
2027.
after. So it's a long runway.
Just for clarity, this is advisory,
Mhm.
still would come in.
Correct. You would have to take action.
Want to say that out loud.
Okay. All right, so we good, we're gonna get some clarification, but then we will bring it back to the business agenda to, just so you guys can double check it, okay? All right, thanks, Rhiannon. Thanks, Chief. So now we have Budget Amendment 250205, which is the office relocation of H3 Recovery Resource Center, and this is Kim.
Hello again, council and mayor. It's getting busier on the third floor of City Hall.
Yes, it is.
And as part of a larger effort to make room for everybody, I will be relocating my office on third floor into the Recovery Resource Center. Happily, there was a small space that is very suitable as an office, but it was not suitable as an office as is. So I'm coming to council tonight to request a small budget amendment to make sure that that office space is soundproof and habitable. I'll be living there along with my fiscal admin assistant, Laura, and I just want to make sure that it's a comfortable space for both of us. So the budget amendment is approximately 5,000. No, I'm sorry, the budget amendment is $7,576 for that renovation project. Looking
Yep.
for questions.
Mr. Newell and then Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, just in the standpoint, when we started the resource recovery, we were leasing space and we talked about, is that a long-term solution or whatever? I guess just kind of comment on having run it for a while. What's our thoughts? Is that a semi-permanent location, permanent location? Just curious what.
I'm going to defer to the city administrator on that question.
I think in life, probably the best we could assume is that it's semi-permanent.
There's evidence
It's meeting our needs right now. And as we get into the next agenda item, we're talking about sort of the functionality of that space as the Recovery Cafe continues to expand. So
That's great. It just, a year and a half ago, was kind of like, we're not certain how it's going. Sounds like it's going well.
It's going
Just
well.
Wanted to go, hey, yes, we're going to continue to invest in that location.
And it is one of those programs, right, that is highly dependent on external funding. So.
Mr. Eckert and then Mr. McVeigh.
Understand the need and the reason, and it's not a ton of money, but I did want to bring up, in light of any conversation where we're looking at moving staff out of City Hall, we have talked around the topic of the Historical Society having part of City Hall. Many times like I said, we talked around it, we brought it up, we haven't really ever talked about it pointedly. And so I think that this is, highlights the fact that we probably need to get serious about that conversation. I talked with Rob about it. He is engaging with the Historical Society about it, but I think it might be point in the future here, probably not very far in the future, for the council to make some serious direction, that we work to get that rest of City Hall back into City Hall, because I don't see us shrinking. I mean, good on Kim, she's got a place to go, but, you know, staff is only growing, and so I think we really need to take back the real estate in whatever, however we can do that, that we already own.
I think Rob is having some conversations and I think that's the intent. Yeah, it's not just staff is growing, the city's growing. I mean, the city it needs more staff because the city is growing very quickly. And, yeah, point noted, so.
Can I add two other quick points? One being just operationally, there are definitely a benefit for Kim being able to be closer to her staff from a day-to-day operational basis. So that's a good thing. And then we are facing the retirement coming up very quickly. We have gone out for, we've done our recruitment and it's going out there for our new HR manager. So currently, Deanna is cohabitating with Rhiannon, and it's going along swimmingly. But as we recruit somebody new and bring them on board, we're going to need to have that space because they need the privacy in that role to be able to have those critical conversations.
So, Mr. McVeigh and then Mr. Stern.
Thanks, Mayor. I have to confess that when I read this, I was a little disappointed. And I appreciate Rob's comments that Kim will be closer to some of her staff. But as our Director of Housing, Health, and Human Services, she has a very wide portfolio. And it seems to me substance abuse and recovery is only one part of that portfolio. I'm a little wary about relocating her out of City Hall. I am equally frustrated by the lack of space. I agree with Rick that we need to figure out, we need to get more space in this building sooner rather than later. If I understand the way this is written in Kim's explanation, the $7,500 is for some improving some space, some soundproofing some walls. It is not for additional rental fees there. Is that right? We're not expanding the space we're renting.
That's my misstatement. I did not write that clearly enough. There is an additional rental fee that's included in that $7,000 budget amendment. And now I'm remembering why I said $5,000 for the change. The rental renovations are around $5,000. The additional rent is the other $2,000. Thank you for the.
And how long are we committing to that for?
To the end of December of this year.
Okay. When do we have any sort of timeline for when the Historical Society may move out? And do we have that availability of that space?
We do not at this point in time have a timeline. I have met with their new executive director about it. They are aware, but they also are needing to identify new office space in which to relocate basically their archives that are located here at City Hall, and then have space for meetings, board meetings, et cetera, and their executive director.
All right. Kim, was this your request, or are you feel you're trying to take one for the team and create some room by moving out?
It is my absolute pleasure, after the way I've been treated in the city of Poulsbo for the almost decade I've been here, to take one for the team.
Okay.
I think it is more than fair to ask me to move, and I'm happy to accommodate.
All right. All right. I guess I will go along with it, but please hear my caution and please hear that I don't think it's a good permanent solution.
Of course you do.
Okay, Mr. Stern.
Most of my concerns have been addressed in the ensuing conversation so far. I did attend the Historical Society annual fundraiser. I have a lot of soft contact with the board of directors and the others. I don't ever purport to negotiate for the city, but it's my imperfect understanding that technically everything's subject to negotiation. There is a 2-year notice requirement. I'm trying to address Gary McVeigh's comment about time frame. We have no time frame.
I'm not aware of that, Councilmember Stern. I'll have to follow up to actually know if there is an agreement. It is a unique space in the fact that it's split between their leasing half of the square footage versus sort of an ownership interest in the other half. So I'm not sure how the time frame works into that.
So we've got some, I think the bottom line is we've got some work to do with this. I think I've made it pretty clear that they need to leave. It's time, that we need the space. I know that Rob has made it clear. So, we'll try to get this going as quickly as we can. It's really hard because, you know, we all care about the Historical Society. I mean, they're a valued nonprofit in our community. But on the other hand, part of it is that we owe them a hunk of money because they bought the space, which they might be able to use. So let's talk, you and I.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Paid parking, bond. Post office leaves, new police station and parking garage. Boom, problem solved. In 10 years.
Boom, $50 million. Okay.
Well,
Thank you, though.
yeah, the other permanent solution, which is much longer and much more expensive, is the Law and Justice Center.
Yeah.
And then we
Agreed.
move the courts and the police department. And that opens up much more space and gives them much better facilities. And, you know,
$100
so,
million,
yeah.
yes.
So the long-term plan that we need to come back to at some point is addressing that.
Yeah.
And that addresses the space in City Hall for decades.
Okay, so we need a resolution on this. Kim is taking one for the team with the idea that we will try to figure this out as we go along. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Move BA number 25-0205 office relocation.
We'll just do it on the consent.
Oh.
Okay. Move to get, workshop, so, okay, so.
I'm sorry, Mayor, just, Mayor, one more related thing on
Yes,
this.
go ahead.
I think, and maybe this has already been done, I think it might be time to take a look at how we could better use that lobby space on the second floor. There's an awful lot of room, it's a big open space. It's not real well used. I've noticed that we've already moved a little bit of something in there for staff, but maybe there's a way that we could capture some space in that area.
Good thought.
I think we might need to get creative.
I sit in there a lot. There is a big space there. There's a couple thousand square feet there in that lobby for sure. So, all right, thank you. All right, so we're going to kind of move forward, but we'll, to be continued. As space requirements always are. It's the constant deck chairs. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Healthcare Authority, a budget for the HCA contract amendment.
Very good. Just a quick reminder to council that the Healthcare Authority has been very generous with the city in supporting what we're doing at the Recovery Center and the Recovery Cafe now for about a year. They added to our current grant by almost $50,000 after visiting our cafe and seeing all the promise that it holds. So we have an additional $50,000 as a part of a contract that already existed that needs to be spent by the end of June 2025. I'll be coming back to council with a new contract that will start in July, again, with Healthcare Authority funding this June. So I'm coming to council tonight to suggest a few changes with that $50,000. More space improvements, since it seems that for the time being, we're staying at our current location. Yep, we're running a cafe now with our cafe coordinator, Summer, putting dirty dishes in her car, dishwashing several blocks away, and doing all
That's not
cooking,
working.
at a site that's down the street. So for the sake of Summer's back, and many other considerations with the cafe, far better to have a cooking service within our facility along with a dishwashing service. We'll be using the Healthcare Authority funds largely for that rebuild. But in addition, there are some minimal fees to be a part of the Recovery Cafe network that we'll be using that funding to, as well as some additional supplies through the end of June.
Go ahead.
Yeah, did you resolve the security privacy issues you were having with the blinds already? Or do you
Yes.
still, okay.
Thank you for remembering that. The blinds have been installed and they look terrific. Thank you.
All right, so we're kind of morphing here a little bit and moving forward with the cafe.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
part of the progression that we're making, to not just have a recovery center, but have a cafe and being more efficient in our delivery of services.
All good on this?
I like it
Okay.
too. Yeah.
All right, so thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much.
The next is downtown parking updates, signage, employee parking and enforcement, and parking violation fines. Our favorite subject, okay? Yeah, we're bringing reinforcements tonight. Here we go.
Yeah, of course.
Good evening, council members of the public. Thank you for hosting us again on this very important topic. It's been a little over a month since we were last before you all, and we have some updates to provide you, as well as we are here to seek some direction from you tonight as well. And I'm going to pull up our presentation. And just to orient ourselves, because it has been a little over a month since we last touched on this topic for those watching. This is our vision. This is why we are doing this work. We have a flat capacity of parking, and our council has passed a resolution that we want to create more parking by creating an employee parking program. We want to improve our signage so that we can have the ability to support our increased and growing residential and customer base. And this will be accomplished through multiple steps, and ultimately will end in paid parking, which will go in effect in 2026 based on the resolution that you all passed on March the 19th. Tonight we'll be talking about signage as well as employee parking and enforcement, and then we'll end the conversation on it with a discussion on fines. So Josh and his team has been doing some work, and he's going to update you on that, but first give you an overview of existing conditions.
Okay, so what we did is we had a couple guys go out and take some inventory on the existing parking related type signage related to loading, time limits, pickup zones and things like that. And so what this map really highlights is our areas that have in red are it's a couple of the colors are a little hard to see. Actually, the orange shows up as red on there, so sorry about that. But the streets that are highlighted in red currently are no time limit restricted streets. The street shown in green there on Jensen is a 2-hour limit, and then the streets that are shown in the lighter blue are a 1-hour current parking limit, and then Anderson Parkway there is also a 3-hour parking limit. And so also in this process, what we did is we took inventory of our current ADA stall locations downtown, because we've heard quite a bit of feedback about some desires to have some additional ADA parking. And so we are proposing, and we'll show that here shortly, some additional ADA stalls, as well as some changes to our overall time limits within the streets downtown.
I was just going to question the Anderson Parkway itself. Is that what was traditional? Is there a reason why 2 hours is not adequate for most visitation activities, including a meal?
Great question, and that's on the next slide and what we're proposing.
So one comment and one question. So we still have the area there indicated as a loading dock next to what was Slippery Pig, which is currently a streetery. So we really don't have that loading zone anymore. And then question, with these loading zones, if somebody is parked in them, not loading and unloading, but just parked, is that still fall under the same fine code that we're going to discuss down the road, or is that an additional, is there separate fines?
Parking in a loading, unload zone enforced in a different manner. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that it's not enforced in a different manner. It's subject to the fine that we currently have, which is 30. We have just a $30 parking violation fine, period. The only differentiation is if you're in a fire lane, and then it's $250. That's what we currently have.
Because I will say, I see a lot of violations in particularly the loading zone around the corner from that one there on Front Street, where people just treat it like a parking space. So if that is not any more than a regular parking fine,
We're going to be talking about
yeah,
the fines.
we might need to talk about that.
We're going to be talking about the fines, because the fines are not appropriate right now.
So the one thing I didn't mention that I would like to mention before I move on to the next graphic is we did capture on Front Street here that we do have 3 current locations that are 15-minute pickup spots for the commercial businesses downtown.
Josh, for the benefit of the public and maybe some of us, can you just tell us the red areas that are currently there is no parking limit on? Can you just?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember McVeigh. So currently here, what you'll see is all of Third Avenue, Moe Street, and Sunset. And then a little bit also King Olaf parking lot, which you'll see on the next slide, and we've talked about quite a bit. A portion of that will be dedicated for downtown employee parking. And then the portion of Front Street near Martha and Mary, all are currently no parking time limits. And then, as I mentioned, the section there of Jensen between Iverson and Sunset is currently 2-hour parking, and then Jensen between Iverson and Front Street, and then downtown Front Street is all 1-hour parking.
What do you want to do?
Okay, so here is what we are proposing. We are proposing keeping Sunset as a no time limit area. We are proposing to change all the other areas downtown, so Third Avenue, Moe, all of Jensen, the area in Front Street, King Olaf, Anderson Parkway, all to 2-hour parking. And you'll see the one area highlighted in the King Olaf lot as the proposed, one of the proposed downtown employee parking areas.
City Hall going to 2 hours too?
Yeah, we hadn't
Yeah.
really.
City Hall is used now for employee parking with some visitor spaces. We haven't decided yet how we'll be managing the visitor spaces in City Hall at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then lastly, I'll highlight on here, it's a little hard to see the symbols, but we do have 2 proposed ADA parking locations there on the corner of Front and Jensen, right near Cafe Kachina. And then the other spot on Front Street near a curb ramp that they can have access to near Sly's Bakery.
Pam just made a comment saying that's it for ADA, and I just wanted to say again, we've said this before, but it's challenging to add ADA, right? It's not as simple as just painting the road. There's some conditions that have to be met, is my understanding.
Yeah, there are some conditions. Now, could we add more ADA stalls than just the 2? We can.
We could.
I will also say that we are currently meeting our ADA allocation requirements in this area. But could we add more? Yes, we could. What we look for is adequate space, accessibility to the sidewalk via curb ramps that are adequate. Also, we look for spaces that are flat. Do we want them to be van accessible? If they're van accessible, they may need to take a parking stall next to them. So we're just trying to weigh those types of things.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
So there's a possibility in the future that more could be added while you look at all of those different components. I get it, I understand, but having cared for 2 parents that have now passed on and pushing wheelchairs and stuff like that and it's really something. And then those who navigate it themselves. So I am from a selfish standpoint. And, I really didn't get it until I was caring for my parents, and you're just trying to go and enjoy a dinner. And it's a lot of work, so.
Yeah, I mean, with some direction, we definitely could look at adding additional spots. I mean, the question would be, how many do we want to add? But I think we can add more.
So
I'm
it's
sorry.
Gary and then Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh and Heather, thanks for the work so far on this. In terms of the time limits, for those areas in the summer of 2026 and thereafter that we have agreed to establish paid parking in, am I correct in assuming that if I park down in Anderson Parkway, I've paid for a parking spot for the maximum of 2 hours, that assuming that we select a mobile parking application, which I think we intend to do, can I stay longer than 2 hours if I'm having dinner and want to go to a show or go shopping? Can I extend my time beyond the 2 hours by paying more money?
Great question for clarification. So once paid parking is implemented in those areas, the 2-hour time limit restriction will be removed. So Anderson Parkway, Front Street, and Jensen will all have their 2-hour time limit signs removed, and they will be replaced with paid parking signs with the Park Mobile scanner app and things like that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so we have Doug, Rick, and then Doug.
Appreciate the consistency, makes it easier to determine what the rules are, because right now it's hard to tell. When on Most Street, I'm like, is it time limited or not? Because everything else, anyways. I guess just for clarification, when we redo 3rd Street, that entire sidewalk walking complex will all be ADA accessible, correct? Will we, and I assume we will add some ADA parking on 3rd when we redo 3rd?
That is correct, yes.
Same thing is when we redo Front Street, we would take the same approach, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question.
So we have Rick and then Doug.
Yeah, I just noticed that the slice out of Anderson where at the port there is not included in your shading. Have we not addressed that section yet? Or are we waiting to our meeting with the port? Yeah, the part towards the water.
You need, it should be green.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's just some oversight in the graphic there.
Okay, because I know we had some sign issues already there.
Right, yes.
Okay.
So, I actually got this recommendation from my elderly neighbor whose book club I visited. And, one of the attendees lives in the Sophie, and, her concern, which I thought was made a lot of sense, was, for the 2-hour parking, this is 24/7, right? Most cities, it's like, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then that cuts enforcement down to a smaller window, but then also allows people in high density areas to park their cars there overnight. And not, she's like, I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford the parking under the Sophie. And,
But see, that's part of the
That's
problem.
the
With-
problem.
Like,
Nope.
we've got all this residential.
Nope.
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nope, nope.
so all of it, I mean, but it kind of makes sense. Like, so we're just gonna have empty streets with empty parking lots all night when people could be parking their cars there and not needing more parking?
Excuse me. I can respond to that, Councilmember Tabor. That's a really great question, and it's something that hasn't been fully fleshed out that we also wanted to discuss with you tonight. And we don't have to make a decision this evening.
Yep.
The first question is, do you all have agreement on the 2-hour parking? But the second question is, when will we be enforcing
Yeah.
the time limits? And Josh and I discussed that internally, and does it make sense to stick with the proposal for paid parking of doing 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.? I think part of what would take for that to be a successful system is potentially having the enforcement of the overnight parking. Those signs would still be standing saying no overnight parking. But in terms of how long do we enforce the 2-hour limit, that is a policy decision that we were going to bring forward to you all tonight.
Yeah. And just for my fellow council members, my question is, what is the benefit to our citizens of not allowing overnight parking when we're enforcing the rest of the time? I see no benefit of preventing people from using parking spaces when the businesses are closed and the parking is sitting there for free.
So I guess it gets into the question of, do we completely do with any parking requirements all and dump all the cars into the public domain? And it's kind of an all or nothing, and our developers would prefer not to build any parking.
Right.
They
It's
prefer
expensive.
they prefer not to build any parking and say, city, you deliver the parking. And so that's the tension we have, that we're asking them to deliver parking because we know that the residents are bringing cars into the environment.
And they're choosing not to park in the parking that was built for their building.
Correct.
their
And
living.
And the cars, my observation, there's a handful of cars that park in front of the Sophie during the
Yeah,
day
all day.
too, that are the same at night.
So I think there's a compromise here where maybe like Anderson, Front Street, and then Olaf are all no overnight, but then like Jensen and things that make more sense that are right in front of existing high density residential allow overnight parking. I don't know. I just see a lot of cities also do, like most cities I visit, you know, you get there at like 6 p.m. and you're like, oh, free parking. I can go to like a show or a concert or go hang out and not worry about getting towed. I don't know. Just
Why don't we just kind of table that issue for
Sure.
right now?
I'm fine with
okay?
that.
And then you can talk to our consultants and say, what does that look like? What is their recommendation about overnight enforcement? Okay, if we go all to two hours, would that work with you?
I think it's worth discussing, Mayor, but I would be concerned that if we don't handle this correctly, we are going to be disincentivizing people who move into the Sophie and move into Eliason Square and move into the future parking apartment building on the old police station lot, not to purchase paid parking from the building. That is what we do not want to do. So I would have concerns about that, and so we need to handle it real carefully, I think.
I think at least in having maybe like a paid parking so people can park and pay overnight or something like that in some places. So there's not just, if all this is empty every night, it doesn't make sense to me to then like pay for us to enforce and just go around ticketing people, and we could be either letting people park and making money at the same time.
If I
Just
could,
a-
there's empty spots.
Yeah, because they're not being used. Okay,
No, I was just, if I could offer that staff have been grappling with a lot of these very same questions. And the questions really arise in the because of the fact we've sort of bifurcated a parking solution. We are phasing it in and doing sort of the employee parking, the enforcement, and then some, down the road paid. A lot of these questions can be answered simultaneously if in fact it was all implemented. We went directly to a paid piece that was enforced, right? So we're raising questions that we might not have had to answer if we had done that.
And risking throwing bombs, our paid parking was 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It did not cover overnight. No, it did not. It was paid parking was from 10 a.m. to
Right,
6.
and then no overnight parking, so there would have been
It didn't
enforcement.
It didn't say no overnight parking.
So if I want to go
That-
at 9 p.m., I can't?
No overnight parking is the existing condition.
That's the existing, that's not what.
No,
I think we need to go back to our consultants and
Yeah.
ask what their
Well,
opinion is on this situation.
I
Okay.
think we
Get
very
some
distinctly
experts.
said no overnight parking when we went to paid parking, that had to be, all existing regulations had to be enforced to make paid parking work. We discussed that multiple times. I have a concern, a couple ways if we were to try to do something like what you're asking for, Doug, because I think it's been clear through this paid parking conversation, based on the emails we gotten and folks that have come, everybody has a reason for us to carve out an exception for them, for their group, their club, their place. If we carve out all the groups, that we've been asked for, we're right back to where we started. We need to have one plan, and, especially if we make an exception for the Sophie, where there's already there's some members of the public that think the Sophie got a deal. The Port is next. Sons of Norway is next. Like, we cannot keep making carve outs. We have to have a rule, and the overnight parking is a big part of the problem now.
Okay, go ahead.
I regret tying it to the Sophie. That's just where the idea came
I know,
from.
but
I think it's just in general, like, I think it makes sense to use a resource when there's no reason.
But
not
there's
to.
other
I think
residents
what
down
we
there.
need to do is we'll talk to the experts
Sounds
and
good.
get their opinion on what would be the best course of action. Okay.
One more point. Kind of like what Doug Newell said, of developers would love it if we didn't do this. We had these requirements. We have parking requirements on every other residential development in every other part of the city. And so if we do something where we give public parking to the residents downtown, which is essentially what we'd be doing, by letting them park overnight in the public spaces, then we are once again creating a unique situation that only the downtown gets. And I think we need to be very careful in continuing to give the downtown something we don't give the rest of the city.
Okay, I'd like to ask another question. We'll get an answer from our consultants what the best approach is on the overnight issue. Why are we not doing 2 hours on Sunset?
Mayor, I'm sorry. Can you sit a little closer to the
I'm sorry.
microphone? I'm having trouble hearing you down
I'm
here.
getting tired tonight, guys. Why are we not doing 2 hours on Sunset?
I think, well, the initial thought is that due to the residents that are there, in the current on-street parking situation, the thought was that it would be best to keep it as a no-limit area.
I can also share that was consistent with the Walker recommendation to keep that free parking. There were some areas they identified. And so we thought to be consistent with that recommendation based on that residential neighborhood to keep it.
Okay, all right. So we have to find out about the overnight parking, free or not free, stop at 6 question. Okay, so we have to find that out. But is there any other questions regarding what you're seeing up here? Any questions? Gary, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Josh and Heather, I just make sure I'm clear. These time limits you're proposing, this is just for the interim period that we begin enforcement and until summer of 2026 and thereafter when we start paid parking in some areas. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rucker.
And this would be enforced by our current police department.
That
We
will be
haven't-
determined
we
by
haven't gone
council
that
at a
far.
future meeting, who is doing the enforcement.
Okay, so either the police department or we're bringing in a parking enforcement prior to paid parking.
Or we're getting a third party.
Yeah.
So there's 3 options, correct?
All right. Okay, so next.
Let me just wrap up a few quick things. Josh and I did meet with the president of the HGPA, Denver Smythe, who's been a great partner through this, as well as Sandy Cobain, the owner of many restaurants downtown. And we did run this past both of them to get their input. There was general support of the 2 hours. We proposed the additional ADA spaces. There was support for that. Just for full disclosure, at the time, we thought there was only one 15-minute stop and go. And we proposed 2 more. And then thanks to Mike Lund, we discovered we actually have 3 in total existing. So we're not proposing to add any more than what's currently existing. So I want to make that clear for anyone listening. And thank you, council, for your journey on how to move forward through these. I do also want to clarify one more thing. The proposal 2 would be when paid parking goes into effect, those areas that are not part of paid parking would stay at the 2 hours as well. So I want that continuity would stay there.
Okay.
Everything
Thank
is-
you.
So paid or unpaid, 2 hours is the magic time click.
So Mayor, sorry, I don't know if Heather and Josh are still planning to cover this or not, maybe they are, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear that as part of our efforts, because we have taken a comprehensive look at downtown parking, and we've been working on this for a long time. Heather and other staff members have been working really hard to increase the amount of employee parking. And I hope you noticed in the packet that we have identified now a total of 148 new employee parking spaces between several different locations that I don't think would have happened if we hadn't started this in-depth conversation. And I just want to publicly thank Gateway Church, Chinook Contracting, First Lutheran Church. Who else am I missing, Heather?
The post office
Post
is-
office?
is actually not
That's
owned by the
Chinook.
post office.
That's Chinook.
We will be working with
Contracting.
them, but.
Anyway,
correct.
all of the, some of these folks, they stepped up voluntarily and said, hey, we want to help resolve the downtown parking problem. We want to help you provide employee parking, more employee parking. And I just want to thank those organizations that have stepped up and are partnering with us, and thank Heather and our staff members who have worked so hard to organize and retain so much additional new employee parking. I think that's going to be really important to the success of the program.
Thank you, Councilmember McVeigh. I just very quickly, because the HDPA did go through the effort of putting out a survey to their employees, I want to share what's of no surprise to anyone is that most of the employees are parking on street. They're parking in our public parking lots of those that responded. Their biggest challenges is a limited number of available spaces, which is why we've gone through these efforts. And they do have concerns about parking availability. So I just wanted to set the stage and also just thank all those that participated in the survey. As Councilmember McVeigh just stated, we have many partners that have come to the table, including the city of Poulsbo is putting forth their own spaces and their own parking lots, upward of 50 spaces. And we have had preliminary conversations with Bank of America parking lots. That's to be determined. So at this moment in time, we have about 150 spaces that will potentially be available. And this is where we are in the process of getting agreements signed. And there are some questions on boundary for the Lutheran church that we're working through. But we're really hopeful that we'll have these spaces secure in the near future. So what's going to happen next, just as a heads up, is we will be returning to you all with the contracts to provide employee parking spaces, because I want you to be aware that there will be costs associated with that. Some of those will be maintenance costs to those lots, some restriping, some improvements. So you will learn more about those as we get those agreements signed. Okay, or before we sign them, because you'll be a part of that signature. Okay, enforcement, last but not least, where we are with enforcement, before we move on to our fine discussion, is that we have released an RFP. We have a light and a robust schedule, meaning light would be not the full 6-7 days a week, but it could be something smaller than that on random days, versus a robust, which would be 6 to 7 days of enforcement. And we're also looking for option to add on management services, because we understand, as we've spoken to you all, that someone is going to need to lead this effort. And could that be our third party that helps partner with a city manager to lead these efforts of sorts, not our city manager, but a department head. So that's to be determined. But that RFP is going to close at the end of the month. We already had a pre-bid call with one interested party, and we know of at least another. So we're hopeful to get some responses. So what's that going to mean is, once we know what this cost is going to be, we're going to return to council. We plan to come to you on June 11th, and we're going to bring forth 4 options for you to consider. We'll also bring back this recommendation on enforcement hours and overnight parking. We'll plan to do that at the same time. So you all will be asked to make a decision on, do you want to hire a parking enforcement officer, which is similar to the Bainbridge model or Port Orchard model? Do you want to go with a light RFP, a robust RFP, or do you want to do that hybrid code enforcement, parking enforcement, which is something we talked about through the budget process last year? As you know, we do not have a code compliance officer at this time.
Really nice.
And that could be, you got it. You got it. So you'll be asked
We
to
do,
determine.
I mean, have you noticed the signs already? Again, we just did a sweep and they're all over everywhere. We need to have some kind of code enforcement in this town, and we don't have a code enforcement. So I vote for 4, but I can't vote, but I like the bottom one. Go ahead.
All right, council, any questions before I stop sharing the screen on these items?
I like 4 too. I already made my pitch for a code enforcement officer. However, one person can't work 24/7. So is this going to include, if we were to go with a code enforcement officer who would be presumably busy the normal work day, the
We'll have to
outside
work out
that
that.
hours, how we would cover those? Like, is that gonna be part of it, or is that something we would have to figure out
We can work.
after we
we'll
make this
work it.
decision?
Yes,
I
that will.
very much think it's workable. Remember the Walker study that said the average duration of parking downtown was 90 minutes. And most days, over 90% were turning within the limits. And so we don't have a systematic problem of parking. We have spot problems. So I think that there's the potential that we could find a solution, and if it doesn't work, then we evolve from it.
There is going to be some trial and error here, okay? With all of life, with any new
Yeah.
systems, with anything we implement, there's a little bit of trial. and error.
Right, but we haven't had a code enforcement officer in how long?
Been a long time.
Right, so that person is gonna be busy. They are gonna be fully employed,
Well, you
For
don't
a
know
while.
that. Let me worry about. the
and
staff,
we're gonna
okay?
change parking rules for the first time in a long time. So that person's gonna be busy.
Let me worry about
So
the staff.
I don't think we can assume that we can handle this with one
Let-
person.
I'm gonna say it a third time. Let her worry about the staff.
I'm just saying.
Thank you.
We
Okay.
need to plan for this. We can't just assume it's gonna be easy.
Okay. Is that it?
I'm almost done, council.
Okay, go ahead.
The last part is fines. So included in your packet, there was a memo that outlined, our fines for parking violations are included in PMC 10.12. There's some analysis of what our other jurisdictions are charging. Currently, the fine is $30 for any parking violation. Unless you're parking in a fire lane, then it's a $250 fine. Our comparables of Port Orchard range between $20 and $100. Bainbridge Island is $50 and Bremerton is $30 to $40. We are proposing this evening is to increase the fine to $50 unless you park in an employee parking spot and you are not an employee. And we would like to raise those fines to $250 to match the violation for parking in the fire lane.
Okay. Mr. Eckert, go ahead.
I agree with those. I would like to add the loading zones to the employee parking.
Okay.
Basically, anything that's not standard parking, there's an increased fine. So if you're abusing the 15-minute, the loading zone, any of that, there's an additional fine. I also like what Port Orchard has with the late fee. I think that's so that we don't spend a lot of time and effort chasing people down. So I would be supportive of adding that $25 late fee if it's not paid or a hearing isn't requested in 30 days like Port Orchard has.
And if we could include the Kitsap Transit bus stop as part of our patrol area, people have learned they can dash in there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen
Oh,
that.
yeah. I like that quote,
I've seen
Mayor.
that.
Question,
Yeah.
Mayor?
So anything that's not a real parking space, and you can define that in all those various, be the additional fine.
We can work on that. Okay. All right,
Mayor, sorry.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
See me down here.
I'm at the end of this road
That's all right.
here.
So, Josh and Heather, I appreciate having the comparable, fine information for Bainbridge, Port Orchard. Are we confident that they have updated their fines lately? Because I know it's been years since we updated ours. I just don't want to be benchmarking ours to, really old fine information.
I can say that Bainbridge has in the recent past. I want to say that Bremerton, I looked at the ordinance where they adopted the current fee schedule.
Yeah.
I can't say with confidence that they've updated theirs recently, but I can say that they have a third party that's doing parking. But if you'd like me to give you more information, I can look into that.
My first reaction was $50 is too low. I was, I was thinking something more in that order of $75 to $100 myself to make it,
Painful.
to make it pencil out and to change behavior as we would like to change behavior.
Quick note, I plead guilty to getting a parking ticket in Hood River, Oregon. It was $55. So just this is on par.
Well, it used to be $30 and that was established. Last time we reviewed it was 2006 and I just did inflationary and it came to 47 and a half. So I rounded it up to 50. So
Gary, how would you feel about just doubling it to 60?
I could support that, Councilmember Eckert. And thank you for your quick math there, Mayor.
60. That's what we did.
And council, I'm just saying that tonight you're not making a final decision. This will just give us the information. Rhiannon and I will be working on coming back to you all to formally adopt.
And I was also just in Hood River, Oregon a week ago, and I can tell you, there ain't any free parking over there. I did not get a ticket, Councilmember Tabor.
Okay. Any further questions? You guys have done a ton of work.
Thank you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you all very much.
I mean, the planning department has been really, guys, good for you. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to the Knoll Road Project Middle Segment Consultant Contract Amendment, and this is Josh. Are we ever gonna finish Knoll Road?
Bear with me, bear with me. Okay. So, just like Knoll Road has taken a while, you've got me for the next couple presentations here, so, I'll jump right into this. So you might recall, I was here last week for a consultant contract amendment as well, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a different contract amendment. And this is for our next section of the Knoll Road project. And last week we were here to talk about materials testing. This week we're talking about the next section that we want to build here in the next couple of years, the middle segment between Hostmark and Messford. Hostmark and Messford, that's correct.
It's the little one.
Okay, so here, this is just to highlight what we're really looking at, and we're looking at the design, the next phase of design and right-of-way services for this portion. And I will say that we do have, we have received construction grant for this project already as well, and it's slated for funding in 2026 to 2027. So what we're looking at providing with our consultant is the 60%, 90% in final design documents, as well as our right-of-way service. Negotiations, we are anticipating up to 13 TCEs, temporary construction easements, with that next phase. And so that's primarily like where we need to install a light pole or a fire hydrant that's really close to a property line. We need to excavate on somebody's property temporarily, or temporarily grade our sidewalk to their property. So that's what those are. The consultant will also help us with updating our environmental documentation and permitting. They'll perform some updating survey, and they'll create a drainage report and design, and then the final bidding package. So here we are to talk about the actual supplement. So we're looking at $354,000 approximately for the design element of this contract, and almost $200,000 for the right-of-way element to negotiate and secure those temporary construction easements. Our current construction estimate for the project is $1.6 million. And we're looking at a supplement for this contract for design and right-of-way at $550,714.74. It's currently in our plan and in our budget, so we do not need a budget amendment for this project. And so anticipated schedule, assuming we're moving forward, we'll get design underway here in June, wrap up design in August of 26, and advertise for construction fall of 26, and ideally be in construction spring of 27, wrapping up in fall of 27.
So it'll finally be finished in fall of 27,
There you go. Yes.
the whole east side. Go ahead.
I'm just going to repeat a cautious remark that I've shared in the last week or two, and we'll bring it up just to keep it on the record. This project is much impacted by federal funds, phase 3 especially. As long as we're prepared to make up any funding gap so that we may move forward, should there be difficulty on the federal level, is an important criteria. Hopefully we will have no problems.
Yeah, great point. So I will note that the design and right-of-way services that we're here tonight will be all local funds, so that we will get through this. And then if we run into any issues down the road for construction funds, we might have to hit the pause button or deal with that.
We're gonna have to do something because it's goat path too. Okay?
Yes,
I
yeah.
mean, it's really getting bad up there. Yeah.
Yep.
Consent?
Great.
Consent.
All right, thank you for that. Let me open up the other presentation.
While he's doing that, I think you need to be aware, all of you, that we really started mobilizing on Knoll North this morning. There was a lot of trees cut, a lot of unhappy people. So necessary, always sad, but remembering that we're going to be planting back. And there was actually a lot of that were also retained. So, but you might hear some comments about it. It was pretty tough up at Langanette this morning.
Transition.
It's hard.
The end state will be beautiful. It'll be a wonderful place to walk.
Yeah, it'll be great. It's great when it's finished, but they cut a lot of trees this morning.
They did, yes. Thank you for that, Mayor. Okay, so moving on, we're here to talk about our transportation update related to the comprehensive plan process and our complete streets study that we have completed. As you know, we've been working closely with our planning department through this process, and we have completed our transportation plan and our complete streets plan. And as you heard from Heather earlier tonight, they took it to Planning Commission, the overall comprehensive plan, and got recommendation to move forward with adoption of the comprehensive plan, which includes the transportation functional plan and the complete streets plan that we're here to talk about tonight. Okay, first I would like to say, it's been the last, I would say 2 years, maybe 3 years, we've been working really hard on our transportation citywide, not for just motorized, but non-motorized as well. And Carla Boughton has been a great partner for us through this process and supporting us for both of those studies. I know that we had some council members on our complete street study as well. And so I just want to recognize that citywide, this is probably the biggest effort and the most money and time that we've invested into looking comprehensively into our transportation plan for all users. So with that, I will highlight that we started this process for the comprehensive plan back in 2022. Planning Commission has seen presentation 32 times for the comprehensive plan. We've taken it to, now this is mostly effort by the planning department, so I'm not taking any kudos for any of this, but they've taken it to the Joint Planning Commission and Council 5 times. City Council's seen different elements 13 times. Planning has held 21 public events. There's been multiple online polls and feedback sessions, and we've had 6 individual transportation focused discussions and presentations as part of that. So let's talk a little bit about what the transportation plan is and our overall goal. And really what we're doing through this process is looking at the next 20 years and how do we support the city's growth as part of the GMA, or Growth Management Act, ensuring that our city can handle that growth on the transportation side. It also needs to include a multimodal or active transportation. Commonly was referred to multimodal, but now is more commonly referred to as active transportation. We also need to look at our safety needs and look up also consideration of how do we invest in our transportation program going forward. And so that's what we look at, our traffic impact fee program, and how do we support the growth. So first we begin with an inventory in our existing facilities. We look at what we need to grow and support that. We look at our existing conditions and what our level of service is. And from that, we are able to identify our projects for our 20-year horizon. And then we take those projects and we prioritize them into our 6-year capital improvement plan, or our TIP, which you'll see as in my next presentation. And so here, the TIP presentation will be the one that you're making decisions on. As I noted, the transportation plan and the complete streets plan are complete, and we're just summarizing those tonight. But I included these numbers here because some of them are really surprising. We see some really high traffic volumes on some of these streets, and sometimes you think of these as little city streets, but some of these streets are seeing really big numbers. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. You'll see on SR 305, it says 24,000 cars a day. That's just a portion of it. I mean, more realistically, in areas near Bond, we're seeing 40,000 cars a day. And so Front Street, down near Lindvig, you're seeing almost 15,000 cars a day. On Lindvig near Viking, through that area in that intersection, we're seeing almost 23,000 cars. So those are just a couple that I wanted to highlight. I mean, if you think about Lindvig seeing 15,000 cars, I mean, most of those cars are coming through our downtown. They're really large numbers.
We have 13,000 people who live in this town.
Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, it's like, I know that there's a lot of people outside the city coming and using our services, but those are astronomical numbers.
Yes, they're very big. And that's, I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to it because they're large numbers. And so I also wanted to show some of the growth that we are predicting to see on some of our highways in the area. So you'll see, on SR 305, north of 307, a 22% growth of traffic in the next 20 years, a 21% growth on SR3. So we're going to see quite a bit of growth on some of the highways in our area.
Yeah, one question I sent Josh in advance was, should we start now planning for replacing Lindvig Bridge? When we look at these numbers, you know, it's designed to be around with us for decades, but we don't have any plan to replace it. We talked in the Complete Streets about some way to help make it more pedestrian, you know, walking, biking, rolling friendly, but with the amount of traffic that we're seeing on it, you know, rather than having to come up with a big number in the future, do we want to start thinking about that now? Because you see how many cars are going over there, and it's a bottleneck.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilmember Eckert. So just to maybe expand on that a little bit in my response, you know, so the Lindvig Bridge was built in 2003, has a design life of 50 plus years. When we look at the 20-year growth, we do a holistic traffic model of the entire city. And so we look at where these hotspots, and you'll see some in some of the future slides here, where our hotspots are, and areas that we have failing levels of service, areas that we have safety concerns. Everything that we see right now from a traffic standpoint, Lindvig Bridge has plenty of capacity for that, for the traffic. Now, just getting to the Complete Streets element, it doesn't adequately address the complete streets. And so what we've identified in the Complete Streets study is the need for maybe extending or expanding or improving the pedestrian bridge that's in the area. And so that's one option that we have identified.
And if I could just remind us, just think about what Lindvig would be like if we put a troll in Fish Park.
And just a quick note, seeing these, it's a good reminder of how many people our police officers are encountering in traffic, you know, double our population every day in traffic. Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight also the previous successes of our staff, you know, particularly I think of Andre, just because he's somebody that was here when I first started, and the program that he had in our engineering department and our transportation efforts to this point. What we're seeing is the success of our previous planning, in that what we have done to this point is working. We've planned for the growth adequately. So it's allowing us to shift some of our focus onto some of the other elements of our transportation, the multimodal, the active transportation, our transit safety improvements, and some of our maintenance things that we've already heard tonight for some concerns. So you'll see a lot of our projects identified are actually around those things. They're not about building new streets nearly as much or widening streets like in the years past. And so it's a shift in the mindset of what we can do to improve our streets going forward.
I remember the meetings back in 2008, where we were talking about what was going to happen with Strawberry Fields. They were putting new soccer fields up at the school, and the first shared use path that we built first shared use path on that area. And that's when we started talking about punching Knoll down to where it comes, where the Johnson Parkway is, and how it would extend out. I mean, that's almost 20 years ago. You know, it's been 20 years we've been working on that. So you were right. You're right, Josh.
Okay, so to expand a little bit about our level of service and what we look at. So the level of service is really a quantitative measure of our operational conditions at intersections. It's based on the amount of time that each vehicle has to wait. And I will note, and it's really important to just consider this as we look at some of the next couple graphics and consider level of service at the intersections, is it's only looking at the peak hour. So when we say that our level of intersection has a service level of F, it's only for that peak hour. Outside of that peak hour, we're seeing more realistic, shorter times, comfortable times. And so our policy is level of service D. Our minimum requirement is level of service E. And you'll see here on this slide some of what those durations are for those different level of services.
If I could, Mayor, share, and the mayor was there. We hosted that town hall here 3 weeks ago. The mayor was present. And there were hard questions posed to Representative Nance and Commissioner Rolfus about some of the outlying development, not within Poulsbo. And why isn't the state doing more when there's some obvious traffic congestion going on? And why isn't that part of the factoring in approvals? And it was stated that the only thing recognized is level F. There is nothing else that exists for that review. That's not true for the city. And that explains why there's little to no comment on development out in the county on that respect.
Well, it's not just the county. The state exempted themselves from the Growth Management Act and the concept of concurrency of infrastructure as the state grew. They systematically exempted themselves. So that's why you have the levels of congestion you have in Seattle and Tacoma and on major roads on the I-5 corridor. They have no incentive legally in order to keep up with the level of growth that we've required. So, I mean, it's no different over there than it is over here. I mean, it's the state doesn't have those same criterias. So, and we have a state highway that goes like this, right? One this way and one this way, and what are you gonna do? That's exactly right.
And with that, another point, there was comment about bond, and that's heading out of the city that way, because like I said, we don't control it, but the traffic comes in. I just said, thank you for pointing out that these levels of service are determined at the high point. I don't know that folks necessarily gonna understand that, because I'm out of the city by 6:30 every day. At the latest, and I can say, 305 is pretty open when I leave. There's not a lot of cars on it, but when I come back at 4, it's pretty congested. So it definitely depends on when you're looking at it for folks.
Great point. So I wanted to show this graphic here. So this is our existing conditions level of service. So when we talk about the effort that we went in, our consultant looked at all of these intersections that you see dots on in our traffic model and identified what the existing level of service is. And so you'll see we have 3 red dots, which represent below standard, and you'll see those 3 happen to be on 305 as well. And as we've already discussed, we don't control 305, but we do look at those intersections when we have a large development come in, such as Oslo. Obviously they had an impact to that intersection and multiple others. And so we require any development that does have an impact to mitigate that. And so Oslo was required as part of their approval to improve multiple intersections on 305 and some other areas in town as well. So I will highlight here also the intersection of Viking and Finn Hill. It is a level of F, and that is an accepted level for our city. And so we had 42 intersections studied. We have 7 of them at a current level of F. And only one of them is at a level of service F, that is ours. One intersection is a level of service E. And also just to highlight in some of the analysis that the consultant did, we showed how people are driving. So 67% are actually driving alone. We did pull 15% are working from home, 10% carpool, and we have 6% within our city using transit. Okay, so you guys have not seen this before. This is new. It wasn't in your packet, but I thought it was worthy to bring forward and show you guys, because through this process, we did, you might recall, we did have our consultant go back and look at and study the idea of having a downtown couplet on Front Street and 3rd Street. And so what on the graphic on the left, what you can see is that's the area that they studied. In short, the couplet does work. And so what it might look like is there on the right, basically we would bring 2-way all the way down to the 4-way intersection. And then it would be 1-way south on Front Street and 1-way north on 3rd Avenue, just as it is today. This would also allow us to change the entrance into Anderson Parkway that you would see there which would eliminate 2 points of conflict from the turning movements at that four-way intersection and help some of that area. Yes, Councilmember Stern.
This is all remains in the future and will be part of that project that involves the enterprises, et cetera. I'm wondering, Josh, by City Hall, could that not be maintained one way so that we create a flowing loop of traffic rather than sending it off further?
Oh, you're talking about Moe Street? It could be. At this point, they would have the option to go, either direction. So, from a traffic standpoint, I think it makes sense to keep it as two-way, but.
It still serves the purpose. We're
it
just
does.
not channeling it.
Correct. That's correct.
All the way
Yeah.
around, to get the other direction.
If we did that change there, coming into Anderson and gets King Harold, I think.
Yes, I think that's it, yeah.
Does that also open up potential for additional parking on that since one of the lanes of traffic is going away?
It would allow us to make some additional parking or pedestrian, widening, in the area, yes.
Go ahead.
Are there any tearing up street projects that are happening on those Front and Third Avenue in the near future? So great question. So Third Avenue, so we're right in the middle of design of Third Avenue right now. And what we're doing is we're intending to design Third Avenue such that it's forward compatible with this concept and considers it through the design process. And so, as you know, also, and you'll see it in my next presentation of the 6-year tip, Front Street restoration or rebuild is also in our plans. So we just have not begun on the design process for that yet.
This is one of the most exciting things I've seen in a long time. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, it is exciting. I think something like this allows us to free up a lot of space, whether it's for parking or additional spaces for pedestrians and streeteries and things like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think pedestrian safety would be improved a lot.
Yeah.
By cars only coming from one direction and particularly not coming around that corner on Hostmark, because that corner is just, people don't realize it's not all pedestrian and walk right out in front of cars.
And traffic calming, conceptually raise crosswalks and just
Yes,
pedestrian
Wide
ambiance for the downtown
all of the above.
without
yes.
restricting
Yeah.
traffic or delivery.
wide sidewalks with tables and chairs, okay? Yeah, and level. not
There you
this.
go. Yeah. So yes, this is something that gets me very excited.
It's exciting. Really exciting.
Yes. Okay, so through all of that process, what we do, and I mentioned, is we come up with our 20-year CIP and the project needs. And so the graphic on the right, you'll note that not all those, only the projects that are kind of our longer term projects are shown there. But what I want to highlight here is the investment needs for our 20-year projects. And so we break down here our roadway preservation, our local street improvements, safety improvements, and our complete streets elements. But it comes up to about $65 million necessary for that program.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting jaded, but that to me doesn't sound like that much money. Really, it does, no, in all seriousness, it doesn't. No, I mean,
Not over 20 years.
it's not over 20 years, not over 20 years, you
Right.
know?
So you
So-
sent me the different number then when I questioned that.
Yeah, so what I was trying to explain is so in the transportation functional plan, Councilmember Eckert noticed in section, I think it was 1.5, thank you, that we had a couple numbers about our needs. So in our 20-year needs, we had a number of $65.5 million. And then we talked about local funds of $65.3 million, and then a shortfall of $29 million needed from traffic impact fees. So that was a great catch by Councilmember Eckert. And so really originally what we had in there is we had included developer cost or roadway improvement projects in the number. So the number wasn't 65.5. It originally was just over $90 million, but we changed it to get rid of the developer investments and just really highlight on the city's capital investment. And so we forgot to update one of the other numbers, which is the available funds, because obviously the developer funds are not available to us. And so we do show a $29 million need of traffic impact fees. And that's what we use to calculate our traffic impact fees that we'll talk about here in just a minute. Okay, so here we are. So our traffic impact fee is what we use to help fund our projects. We use those dollars to match on many projects, our grants. They must be used on projects identified in our capital facilities plan. And our current GMA traffic impact fee program began back in 2011. They're updated based on our 20-year list of improvement projects and those associated costs. And the fee that the developers paid is at the time of a building permit. Our current fee is $564. Based on our new 20-year plan, we're looking at actually lowering that cost to $548. And this process of adopting that new traffic impact fee is outside of the comprehensive plan, but we just calculated that once we get through developing all of those projects. So we'll come back to you probably in June for that adoption.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. When you come back, comparison to other localities to include the county, my memory is the county was in the 400 and they raised it significantly. So just how we compare to
How
others.
we doing?
Yeah. Thanks.
Good question. I always like the fact that it's going down. It's good news.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, we'll dive into our complete street study and highlight some of our outcomes of our complete streets. Really, as we went through this project, some of our goals were safety. We wanted to look at ways to serve all ages and abilities, connectivity, our vitality of our community, and equity across the city. So you might recall the stakeholder advisory committee I mentioned earlier. We had 2 council members on that advisory committee. We had a total of 9 members. It was made up of staff, street users, meaning people that bike or walk within our city. WashDOT was involved. We had Kitsap Transit on the committee, as well as the Kitsap Public Health District. And so this is just a quick little graphic that really highlights about complete streets. And when we say complete streets, we don't mean that necessarily every street is meant to have all of these features. We look at complete streets of how do we create a network, let's say, of a bike user, an active user, how do they get from point A to point B? And we look for connection points, and not necessarily that we need every street to accommodate all active users, but we look at identifying streets for prioritization. Which streets do we want to be motor vehicular prioritized? Which streets do we want pedestrian active user prioritization? And so that's what we looked at as we went through the process, creating space for all users. So when we talk about classifications, the historical way to classify streets, and commonly referred to, and we still use this, is to look at, principal arterials, minor arterials, collectors, major collectors, and things like that, and all the way down to local access roads. And these are based on FHWA and WashDOT guidelines. So any grant application or WashDOT reference, that's the classification that they use. And so when we look at complete streets, we look at it a little bit differently. So we wanted to look at it as a typology. As I just mentioned, what type of street do we want it to be? Do we want it to be a street that's focused on cars, a balance of both? Do we want it to be really pedestrian or active user oriented? So it's creating that context for those users and looking at it from that standpoint of a street classification, and then developing design standards for those different types of classifications, and creating that tool for us to move forward with our city and developing these complete streets. And so with that, these are standards or roadway sections that we can adopt going forward in our construction standards. So a little bit about our modal hierarchy, again, just to expand upon it, it's choosing what is our priority. Here you see our least desirable, focusing on just private vehicles, and then moving all the way up to most desirable is making a walkable community for all of our active users and the pedestrians, and looking at the vulnerability of all of our pedestrians out there. Councilmember Stern.
Can I add tongue in cheek for Mike's benefit? I really appreciate that green paint under the pedestrians, and maybe we can move it for the bicycles too.
We figured you would appreciate that one. All right, so with that and our consultant work, we developed these 5 typologies. The urban major corridor really oriented again towards that vehicular travel. Main Street is kind of the balance of all of our users. Urban connector, it's looking at that walking and bicycle connection between our residences and our urban destinations. Our neighborhood connector is really about the low stress walking and bicycling neighborhood network within neighborhoods, connecting those neighborhoods. And then we have our neighborhood residential, which is really within the neighborhoods and focusing on the pedestrian and the bicyclist.
So 25 years ago, we installed a lot of stop signs with the intention of diverting traffic from the downtown to connect to 305 to get to Winslow or whatever their point of destination was. We ran into a lot of friction over the stop signs, but that was the intention. And as we look at looping the downtown, if that happens and we can get to one way with the amenities we talked about, we then create that much more traffic calming, hopefully behaviorally directing through traffic back out to take 305.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that was part of what's called TDM, or traffic demand management. So how do we implement some strategies to shift modes of travel without forcing people to go a different direction or restricting their use? And so those are some different methodologies that are used. Now, I will say we can't just go add stop signs wherever we want. There has to be some consideration to stop signs, because if you put it in a spot that is not warranted, then you get poor adherence and you get people violating the stop sign all the time. And so you actually create an unsafe condition because people are ignoring it. So. Okay, so I'm just going to step really quickly through each of these and really what it means from a cross-sectional view, and happy to stop and pause and maybe answer some details if you have any. But that would be a great example of Viking Avenue.
No, the contractor came back with this as 305. The committee changed 305 or changed Viking away from this.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay, so again, this one's just motor vehicle focused primarily. So here's our main street typology, looking at some narrower lanes, some on-street parking, maybe some wider sidewalks. Our urban connector, again, narrower lanes, but this is creating some buffer space between our bikes and our pedestrians.
Yeah, this is where we pushed Viking towards. So
Right.
where narrower, the center becomes divided. So you don't have 3rd-lane drivers down the center with trees or some form of road friendly legislation. Yeah, vegetation. Look at Mike.
Frankly, I don't think anything but 305, there should be any road in this city that isn't 25 miles an hour. I mean, I don't know why we have Viking at 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, the difference is we look
Crazy.
at 305 is a road you use to go somewhere else. Viking's a road you use to go to somewhere in the city. And that was kind of how we told the contractor. It's
Viking Avenue should not be 35 miles an hour, period.
Okay, so within our neighborhood connector, this is the streets connecting our neighborhoods. Now we're looking at 10-foot lanes here, looking at some shoulder space, and then sidewalks, 6-foot sidewalks. And our neighborhood residential, again, our 10-foot lanes, looking at some narrow parking on the side, 7-foot parking strips, and then 6-foot sidewalks.
Oh, look at
So,
this.
okay, so, so through this process, what we wanted to do, because we know that SR 305 is a major challenge for the city. And so we coordinated significantly through this process with WashDOT and continue to coordinate with WashDOT even today on 305 and some future needs. But what we wanted to do is, knowing that it bisects our city, is come up with a plan of how do we accommodate all users on 305. Not that necessarily we're going to go out and build these projects, but come up with a plan that's going to be usable by WashDOT. So when WashDOT does come in and do some improvements on 305, we can point to this and say, hey, this is what we see works for the city, and will help us work towards creating that complete streets connection from the south end all the way to the north end. You'll note here that we did identify some areas that would be great for some mid-block crossing. So one of the challenges on any highway is getting people across the street. It's a wider street, multi-lane, higher speed. So trying to create that safe access, giving some equitable access points for crossing so that people are not having to travel so far to get to the next intersection to cross the street.
Tunnels.
Yeah.
Tunnels.
In one thing in the functional plan under safety, you highlighted, it would be segment 1, I'm guessing. That one of the concerned areas with crashes and all is 305 and 3 on-ramps and off-ramps. But like you were just saying, it's not a road. Like is there a lot we can do there other than just highlight concern?
On 305 or 3?
It's basically segment 1 here.
Okay.
Where it's 305 as you're transitioning on and off of 3.
Okay.
Where there's not a lot of city control there.
Right.
So, like you said, is that really all we can do at this point, is highlight concern and be there as a partner if they want to fix it?
I think that's the best thing that we can do, unless we can identify and help WashDOT pursue some funds or something like that and be partners in that way. I'll take Oslo as a prime example. We advocated that project to contribute funds to WashDOT for improvements right on 305 and safety and pedestrians on 305. And so we are pushing them, and hopefully to try to create a project together that will address some of those needs near the intersection of Bond. So that's one of our best ways that we can get some improvements. And I know up in segment 1, one of the things that we identified there is it's physically constrained because of the underpass as far as a complete streets connection. Okay, so then from there, this is our map of projects that we developed. And so some of these you'll see were incorporated into our 20-year capital plan that made it into our transportation functional plan. And so the complete streets element is approximately $22 million. And I will note, and I didn't note it earlier, that these are current today dollars, at this time. So over the next 20 years, of course, costs are going to increase.
30 million. 32 million.
So, yeah. With that, I would open it up for any questions.
Great work, Josh. It's really good. Questions for Josh? I love 305. One of the things I was looking at 305 just the other day is how, when you're going 305 headed towards Old Hava, you take you have to go underneath the overpass and kind of inch around in order to get on the freeway, to go southbound on Highway 3, and if you just went straight and hit the next intersection and went that way, very little change in the road, and it would sure free up that intersection. So anyway, I'll show it to you. It was because I was looking for land. Anyway, good work.
Great.
Good work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'd asked kind of a couple of questions that Josh answered, sort of around 305 and our challenges. Because if you look in the functional plan, a lot of the challenges center around 305, the big ones that we can't control. And so he did, things like they want to look at, Kitsap Transit was looking at some things to make it easier for transit, but I was concerned about, does that then encourage speeding? If we're, changing signals to make it easier for transit through. And so he had answered those questions for me. And then the big one, because we had heard about it at, I think it was the last year's conference, where a city had actually taken ownership of a highway that ran through their city. And, what would that entail? And he explained it, yeah, that would be a huge burden on us because of, like we said, 40,000 cars that aren't mostly aren't our residents. So, so he answered a lot of my questions about in the plan of those things, and how they would impact us. I had one other question. With Knoll finishing, because we had a lot of traffic numbers, and how finishing Knoll would impact the, I forget the acronym now, I didn't put it in my notes.
Level of service.
And the flow, I think it was a volume number.
Oh, the ADT. Like
Yeah,
ADTs and-
on that side of town as we create that new traffic. And you answered it well for me, but if you wanted to.
Yeah, so Councilmember Eckert asked about was Knoll Road being built out considered? And so yes, when we worked with our consultant in our 20-year modeling, we did model that as if it was fully constructed, as well as some of these other projects. Those were taken into account in our modeling. So we wanted to try to get the best look that we could do of what the city is going to look like 20 years from now. And what I will say, and I mentioned it, is the past has shown the success, and what we're seeing in 20 years, yes, we had a few intersections degrade. Maybe they went from a B to a C, but holistically, our transportation
Is solid.
is really good. And so that's why we're shifting some of our projects to safety projects and other complete streets projects and things like that. So.
Made some really good decisions early on.
Yeah.
No,
We're good.
Yeah, we're doing
Right.
good.
And just the last thing on 305 is just, I've been waiting and waiting till we get that red light camera in. And it's just that I think that the next thing that we could potentially do in the limit of control of 305 is to look at additional cameras on those other major intersections.
State law.
Right,
Only
there are caveats in there for city highway roads, so I just say we explore all options, because the more we can break up the flow as people think it's a raceway, like I said.
Oh, I'd love to, but
Yeah.
we've been told that we only can do 3, so we'll get there. Okay, anything else, Josh?
No, I'm ready to move on to the next one. Sorry, you got me for one more.
Okay, one more, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, the tip. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this really quick. This one should be pretty quick because it's mostly a summary of what you just saw, because it's our next projects for the next 6 years, basically. So, all right, so we will bring this back for a public hearing and adoption June 4th. So just presenting our projects to you tonight. We're required to go through this process by RCW.
I don't think it was. And the details are, but the PowerPoint isn't.
The PowerPoint wasn't?
Nope.
Oh, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay. Just keep going.
Okay, so just to highlight, only projects that are included in the tip are eligible to receive federal or state funding. And so you'll see in our list of projects, maybe they aren't all projects that we're going to get done in the next 6 years, but we need to have them on there just in case maybe a grant comes up that makes us well suited to go after that grant. Okay, so here is our list of projects, and I believe I have a map after this I'll show you that shows these project locations. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm happy to answer any questions or about the particular projects. But total for these projects here is $43 million over the next 6 years. The difference between last year, there is no difference. These are the same projects. We didn't add any new projects to the list. We have quite a bit going on right now and some big projects coming up. So with that, I'll just show you the project locations of where those projects are. And then I would be happy to entertain any questions. So.
Okay, I think we're good.
So there wasn't much there. And like I said, we'll bring it back in June for a public hearing to actually adopt the tip.
Yeah, on the actual program where you have the individual program projects listed out, how close are we tied to the project descriptions that are on there going forward?
Well, so we try to not lock ourselves in too much into the project description. So we don't want to say that it's necessarily going to be exactly a 5-foot sidewalk or something. We don't want to overcommit, but we weren't really tied to anything until we actually pursue funding and describe the project and the funding application as to what our actual scope of the project is.
Okay, so that, I mean, these are general descriptions, but
Right.
like I noticed for Viking, there's comment in there about roundabouts,
Right.
which I know we never discussed.
It's very
you know,
open-ended, so
so,
it
yeah.
retains flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just hoped we weren't too locked in. with
Yeah,
Some of those.
no, great question and clarification. Yeah.
Think, no? Any questions? Cool.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks, Josh.
council.
Okay, now we're on to continued questions and concerns of the council. Anything? We're getting tired. Mr. Newell, go ahead.
I guess just at a high level, and I apologize for going back to how we started the discussion, is what would be a time frame for engagement, understanding of what's going on with the independent investigations and other processes? Just for, is this 6 months? Is this a year? Is this, when would we expect regular updates? Just
I'm not aware of an obligation specifically for regular updates. The current statute says that they have 120 days timeline basically to complete their investigation. But because we're only the third incident
right.
that's being investigated, they really only got up and running late last year. Their timeline has been a bit longer. They're sort of getting closer to that.
I heard.
as I think through, how are we as a team responsive to questions?
You know,
So,
I heard like the first one took them 6 to 8 months.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, I mean, 6 to 8 months. I mean, it could be a
Okay.
while before we get
Okay.
something.
Yeah, if there are specific questions that we do not have answers for and that we are not able to provide, then we, during the course of the investigation, we need to continue to refer them to OII for any
Yeah,
specific
it-
inquiries.
great. And I'm just in the, if we continue to get questions,
We will.
right, we're relying on OII. We got Port Angeles coming in. I assume that the chief and you have already looked, hey, what do we do on a daily basis? Just so that we can say, yes, we're doing all the steps. Okay.
We're
I
doing
just-
all the steps and I was just peeking in Facebook, not that I shouldn't have, anyway. And the Kitsap County Sheriff has also just released a video and it is up on Facebook. So both of us are releasing these videos and I think they're
No.
longer.
It's two different, it's based on their camera footage that they
Their camera
had.
footage.
They produced it. Ours is also live as well.
Okay, so they're both on social media. I'm hoping that this will calm down pretty quickly. I don't know. Okay, any other questions and concerns? Go ahead.
I just wanted to share the Traffic Safety Commission, just as we were doing this work on how important it is, but the number of fatalities in Washington State is skyrocketing,
Oh, I
and
know,
a lot of
sure.
it is impaired drivers.
Mhm.
And just a note, you can go down to city, so we've had 5 fatalities related to traffic from 2017 to July of last year.
I want us to I wish they'd give us more cameras. I mean, I'm
Just how important the work is,
fed
that's
up
all I'm
with it.
trying to highlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fed up with the stuff, yeah.
Yeah, does it? So go down to the city, can we do that? I'm just curious because we had a conversation on the 305 committee about they want to put a roundabout at High School Road on Bainbridge, but we really wonder if, for public safety, but is Bond Road more unsafe than 305 at that point? So if it,
To this day, I do not know how WashDOT came to that decision.
yeah,
I
so I'm
have no
wondering
idea.
if the data on this site helps.
Okay, other questions and concerns? Okay, continued, it's the future agenda items. Rhiannon, anything?
It's opportunity for council to make any changes to the future agenda.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Continued comments from citizens. I think they all went home. That is very good. Mayor and council comments, anything?
I will not be at the next meeting.
Okay, next meeting, okay? Then I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Madam Mayor, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We're done. Thank you.